everyone to first introduce themselves. Let's start with Rick.
I'm Marco Domingo from the Commission on Higher Education, representing Commissioner De Vera, who's currently on the Tatanggis.
I'm Lucky Chester Tinan from the Metro Psychiatry Incorporated, representing.
Miguel Cristobal from Family Wellness Center Foundation.
New Secretary Gosa from the Dangerous Drugs Board.
Dr. Benji Reyes from the Dangerous Drugs Board.
Philip Vera Cruz, Dangerous Drugs Board.
Bernardo Jr., the Chief of Staff. I'm representing UFEC Corporation, the IED.
Dr. Bianca Ves, DOH,
I'm Dr. Rosendo Swallow from DOH, Health Facilities and Services Regulatory Bureau.
Patrick Gafford.
Okay.
From DOH. Francis Adair from DOH.
Okay. So far, bien, you can represent the siguro bigutan, ano? On the part of the government. Oh, what? Okay. Anyway, here with the program. Okay. So we will be discussing these two board regulations this afternoon. First will be the board regulation on the implementing rules and regulations governing the accreditation of drug abuse treatment and rehab centers. Alam na natin pinag-uusapan ito. It has underwent several consultative meetings, no, with both government and private treatment and rehab centers. And so the output will be presented to you this afternoon. What we will do is we will review the board regulation line by line, section by section, and we will appreciate your inputs on this. And another board regulation that we will be discussing would be the implementing rules and regulations governing the accreditation of drug rehab practitioners. Now previously, itong second board regulation natin was subsumed under the first board regulation. This time we decided na iwalay na natin sila. In fact, the original intention was to have a third board regulation providing for the implementing rules for the program, sana, rehab program. But we will be doing that with the ILG. We will inform that ASEC RJ, may pondo si ASEC RJ, and he will be calling for a workshop specifically to define yung community-based program natin and integration, community-based program and integration with the SWD. So for now, we will focus our attention on the two board regulations. Okay. Just a brief background. Of course, under the duties and responsibilities of the Department of Health, Section 76, the Department of Health is supposed to oversee, monitor integration, coordination of all drug rehab, intervention, aftercare follow programs, etc., together with the SWD. No? And that's the reason why the Department of Health ang charged dito sa ating accreditation. They are also charged to license, accredit, establish, maintain drug testing networks nationwide, encourage, assist, accredit private centers, promulgate rules and regulations, which is what we're doing now, setting minimum standards for their accreditation, social competence, and integrity stability. And of course, prescribe rules and regulations governing the establishment of such centers, and then without prejudice to criminal prosecution of those found guilty violating this act, order the closure of a center. So function din siya ng Department of Health. And then finally, charge reasonable fees for drug dependency examination and other medical legal services. I think that's clear under Section 76. Which are, pinakasulat ba? Okay, which are approved to the board na hindi nangyayari yan. Yun pa naman ang pinaka-importante. Okay. Now, similarly, under Section 39, accreditation of drug testing centers and physicians, DOH shall be tasked to license drug testing centers. So far, di pa naman natin pinag-uusapan natin dito ngayon, yung drug testing. No? But it shall also, DOH shall also accredit physicians who shall conduct drug dependency examination of a drug dependent as well as aftercare follow-up program. Now, this month, the board expanded to include other rehabilitation workers, basically. Okay. So, essentially, these two board regulations will repeal the previous regulations, the board regulation number 4, series of 2003, as amended by board regulation number 4, series of 2008, and board regulation number 5, 2013. So this time, itong board regulation na ito, ito na lang titingnan natin. No? Hindi na tayo mag-refer back dun sa mga previous board regulations. And so lahat dito na. Okay. Now, what is different? What has been modified under this board regulation? Well, these are just some general summary of what we changed, no? Which will be discussed later. Under the accreditation of facilities, we have decentralized supervision, monitoring, and accreditation. Previously, you will note, under the old board regulation, it's only the DOH Central Office under the Bureau of Health Facilities and Services who's doing the licensing and accreditation of these facilities. Now, under this board regulation, our intention is to allow the regional health officers of the Department of Health to supervise and regulate these facilities. We also modify the sanctions provided for under the board regulations. More importantly, yung fees, no? Inabdita natin kasi ang tagal-tagal na ng fees na yan. And this is your opportunity to object or to agree, no? Dun sa fees na ginawa ng Department of Health. Of course, we updated the terminologies. As I mentioned, yung BHFS, hindi na BHFS ngayon. And then the IT service providers that we've been using, like IDTOMIS, na wala na yan. Idadin, iba na siya, TRICE na siya. So, we again updated them and others. As far as the accreditation of personnel is concerned, we now allow yung provisional accreditation of our rehab workers. We also modified the procedures and processes on how you will apply for accreditation. The processes would also allow the Department of Health to accredit service providers providing training, capacity building activities to rehab personnel. So private service providers can now be sanctioned by the Department of Health under this board regulation. Of course, we define allowable fees. Up to you to decide, no, if you agree or not. And then, as I mentioned, accreditation of service providers, no, coming from outside the Philippines, and even yung mga private organizations natin, professional organizations, GAP, PICAP, and others. So that's the gist of what we plan to discuss this afternoon. Okay. So, ito na mabigat niya, Joe. May I ask, line by line na lang natin, Joe, kung okay lang sa inyo. No? May I ask the department to present to us the board regulation. Let's start first with the board regulation for the facilities, accrediting facilities. By the way, before we do that, may I acknowledge the presence of our partners from IDEA. Can you introduce yourselves before we start?
Sir, this is Sir Louie Nagasca from our Chief of Public Assistance Center, and I'm
Welcome, Louie and Ray. Thank you for attending. Mark, can we flash yung board regulations of facilities line by line, please? Nandun sa folder, nasa desktop. itaas, facilities. No? Take it away, Joe.
Mr. Chair, with the request sa Tito.
Okay. Iko pala. Iko. You're the mother of the hour.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Entitled as Kiko.
Hi, good afternoon po. So, for the first regulation would be the implementing rules and regulations governing the accreditation of drug abuse treatment and rehabilitation centers. Scope: these implementing rules and regulations shall apply to all drug abuse treatment and rehabilitation centers. The Department of use drug abuse treatment and rehabilitation centers, it would refer to either or to both residential and non-residential facilities, which is currently existing now. Section 2 would be the authority. This implementing rules and regulations is issued to implement the provisions of Republic Act 9165, otherwise known as the Comprehensive Dangerous Drugs Act of 2002 and other national issuances. Section 3, regulatory agency. The Department of Health shall exercise the regulatory function through Health Facilities and Services Regulatory Bureau, or HFSRB. HFSRB shall exercise the accreditation of all drug abuse treatment and rehabilitation centers in the Philippines in accordance with personal complement, physical plan, equipment or instruments, and service capability. From the three first sections po, even before, no changes naman from the previous issue lang.
Pero ito, bali mangyari dito, case, di ba Department of Health and its regional offices?
Yes po, sir. Pero parang it means the Department of Health as a whole agency.
Okay, sige.
So definition of terms, the definition of terms was updated due to like new terminologies being used in our agency. But to go for each of the terms, accreditation, it is a formal authorization issued by the DOH to an individual, partnership, corporation, or association in compliance with all licensing requirements, input or structural standards, and accreditation requirements, meaning process standards and output impact standards as prescribed in the Manual of Operations for the accreditation of that ORCs. Authorized bed capacity, it is the approved number of beds issued by HFSRB or CHD, which is the licensing offices of the DOH. The Bureau Director, it would refer to the Director of Health Facilities and Services Regulatory Bureau. Center, it is any of the treatment and rehabilitation centers which undertake treatment, aftercare, and follow-up program of drug dependence. It includes institutions, agencies, and the like whose purposes are the development of skills, arts, and technical know-how, counseling, and or inculcating civic, social, and moral values to drug-dependent patients with the aim of weaning them away from dangerous drugs and keeping them drug-free, adapted to their families and peers, and readjusted into the community as law-abiding, useful, and productive citizens. Such shall be known as Drug Abuse Treatment and Rehabilitation Center, or DAPRs. Next is CHD. This is the Center for Health Development, which serves as the regional office of the Department of Health. This is a recent changes in our agency. DDB, of course, it is the Dangerous Drugs Board. Department of Health. The DOH is the Department of Health. Drug dependent, it is a person suffering from drug dependence syndrome. While drug dependence, it is a cluster of physiological, behavioral, and cognitive phenomena where the use of a substance or a class of substances takes on a much higher priority for a given individual than other behaviors that once had greater value. The use of psychoactive drug takes on a high priority thereby, involving among others a strong desire or a sense of compulsion to take the substance and the difficulties in controlling substance-taking behavior in terms of its onset, termination or levels of use. I believe this was taken from the definition on the ICD-10. Yes, sir.
So you're using ICD-10
For the definition of the drug dependency.
Akis, pwede ba natin i-slash DSM-5?
Sige po, sir.
Para lang all encompassing.
Since now we're using
Arrestin mo.
DSM-5.
Arrestin mo. Oo.
Pero no, it's lifted from ICD-10.
ICD-10.
That's, yeah, that's for ICD-10.
Pero I think the definition for this is also
Yeah, I agree with yeah. Actually, this is also lifted from the law itself. The definition of the rates of defenses. But, yeah, the RA, if it was.
But we'll check on the DSM. Okay.
Kasi dagdag na lang natin yung as defined naman by DSM-5. Wala namang problema yan. Oo.
para lang ma-cover sila.
Para ma-cover lahat.
Next is the HFSRB. This is the Health Facilities and Services Regulatory Bureau, formerly known as the Bureau of Health Facilities and Services. In digest, one who cannot afford to pay the treatment and rehabilitation services of the center based on the socio-economic status. Manual of operations or manuals for the accreditation of that RCs. This is the standard reference material that describes in detail the processes, policies, and systems for the accreditation of that RCs. This shall aid administrators and practitioners in the management and operations of drug treatment and rehabilitation centers in the Philippines. Next is PDEA, which is the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency. Rehabilitation, it is defined as a dynamic process including reintegration, aftercare, and follow-up treatment directed towards the physical, emotional, or psychological, vocational, social, and spiritual change of the drug dependent to enable him or her to live without dangerous drugs, enjoy the fullest life compatible with his capabilities and potentials, and render him or her able to become a law-abiding and productive members of the community. So those are for the definition of terms po. We now go to Section 5, which is the guidelines for the accreditation of drug abuse treatment and rehabilitation centers. For the first part is the classification of drug abuse treatment and rehabilitation centers, where centers shall be classified as follows. As to ownership, there will be two. One is a government-owned. It is operated and maintained by the national, provincial, city, or municipal government and or other government agency. While private, it is owned, established, and operated with funds through donation, principal, investment, or other means by any individual, corporation, association, or organization such as NGOs and foundations.
May issue lang ako dyan. Previously, in the old board regulation, we defined a government facility to also include yung private facilities partly funded by the government. So this time, tinagdalan natin yung partly funded.
Yes, sir. Because parang we will need to the ownership, like upon the accreditation, who really owns the facility.
Okay, so classic example natin dyan, yung Magalang Rehab eh. So, kasi partly funded siya ng government. Since ngayon, magiging considered private na siya. Okay.
Kasi by paper ownership, it is by the private. Yes. Next is the institutional character. If it's an institution-based, it's a center that operates within the premises and as part of an institution. And if it's a freestanding, it is a center that operates separately from any other institution. This particular classification, as an example, would be some of our non-residential facilities or outpatient, which is part of like a hospital or an office. Like one existing now is the CHD, our Davao outpatient treatment that we have facility. It is an institution-based because it is operating within our regional office in Davao. But if it's a freestanding, meaning meron siyang separate facility. Service capability, we have 3 types of service capabilities. Number 1 is the non-residential treatment and rehabilitation center, which is also the outpatient center. It's a health facility that provides diagnosis, treatment, and management of drug dependence on an outpatient basis. It may be a drop-in or walk-in center, recovery clinic, or any other facility with consultation and counseling as the main services provided, or maybe an aftercare service facility. From time to time, it may provide temporary shelter for patients in crisis for not more than 24 hours. Patients diagnosed with moderate substance use disorder are oftentimes referred to this center. Next is the Residential Treatment and Rehabilitation Center, which is our inpatient center.
By the way, feel free to comment anytime, no? Para di natin malagpasan yung mga important points na gusto nyo i-point out. No?
Okay, so inpatient center is a health facility that provides comprehensive rehabilitation services utilizing any of the accepted modalities as described in the Manual of Operations towards the rehabilitation of a person with substance use disorder. Patients diagnosed with severe substance use disorder are oftentimes admitted to this center. The third one is the Residential Treatment and Rehabilitation Center with outpatient service capability. This is the new one.
That's the new category.
Yes. So it is a health facility that provides both outpatient and inpatient services. What happened is some of our residential facilities are also providing outpatient services. However, due to the existing board regulations, they have to apply for another licensing requirements just to comply in providing outpatient.
So this time, isa na lang lisensya niya?
Yes, po, sir. So any residential facility...
siguro...
Yes.
Isa lang.
Yes, kailan po mag-start? Isang license. Pag na-approve po ang board regulation.
By the way, Kings, meron lang concern kasi si Secretary.
Yes po.
Talking about lisensya na eh. Sige.
In meeting held several days back, there was an issue about licensing and accreditation because as quote from Yusef Villar of DSWD, licensing only meets the minimum requirements for a facility to operate, and accreditation is more steps higher. So, parang meron ka ng good practice, like an ISO, ISO level na, may standards na talaga na So, is there any way by which you could get that into the proposed regulation? Kasi, syempre, when you're about starting, wala ka pang good practice dyan eh. Hindi pa natetest yung modality mo, yung programs mo, di ba? If they're working. So, in the old law, we have the temporary license to operate, which is good for a year. And then, you're supposed to come up with the good practices already by the time, come up with better standards above the minimum that is set. No? So, I don't know if it's possible. Para kung sakaling, if you're not able to come up with a good standing within the 1 year, ma-withdraw yung accreditation, ma-revoke. And then you go through again the process of licensing ulit. Parang hindi yung accreditation agad, tapos ang hirap mo na bawiin. Pero kung medyo may testing ground ka muna before a level higher than licensing, yung accreditation.
Anong practice yun, Joe? I was telling Ate the only reason why the old board regulation used the term accreditation is because of the provisions of the law na nakalagay. But in practice, talaga naman nagla-license din muna kayo, Joe, di ba? Sa BHFS. Ganun ba yung proseso? Ano ba?
Okay. That's accreditation, higher level. So, when we talk of licenses then, we require both of the minimum requirements, input, whereas accreditation kasi may input, may process, and output already. My analogy here is what we regulate as a health facility known as medical facility for overseas workers and seafarers. We issue accreditation but this is the accreditation is good for 6 months, and then this facility is also yung kanya OFW clinics. Clinic. After within 6 months, dapat may certifying body siya. And among the health facilities regulated, there are some 18 types of health facilities regulated by UH. Only these OFW clinics are required to have a certifying body. Yung ISO, hindi pa. Because we have to be at par with international standards, ILO, IMO. So, good point din sa kanina yung totoo yan, licensing minimum requirements. But ito ang practice po natin sa OFW clinic. And then after 6 months, mag-submit sila ng, ano ba, kung ISO man yan. And then, bibigyan na lang ng accreditation na good for up to 3 years na.
According to the definition from if an organization is accredited, this means they conducted a thorough self-assessment and compared themselves to a recognized standard of best practice. Accreditation means that the organization, agency, or program was able to demonstrate the evidence of implementation to all of the relevant standards. It is a rigorous process conducted by a third-party organization.
We've been using the word accreditation for what, 3 decades or 4 decades already. So does that mean that we should go back to the nomenclature na licensing ang ginagawa natin? Because what we're really after is minimum standards. We want to expand naman para maging services available.
So actually, under pakibalik. Mark, pakibalik mo nga yung section yung sa PowerPoint ko kanina. Sa section 76. Sige pa. Sige pa. Yan, duties, Department of Health. Okay, balik. Isang balik. Kasi nakasulat naman dito, license accredit, no? Although drug test network laboratory kasi ito talaga PJ. Sige. So, pag-aralan niyan, DOH, kung kasi sabi mo nga, Jo, wala pang ibang facility except for OFW clinics ang meron tayong accreditation sa ngayon ang Department of Health.
Mr. Chair, may I just, yung sinabi ni Dr. Yapes, 3 decades ago, ano yan?
Since ang PDB before.
Yeah, but it's, I am the secretary of the accreditation team, and we give out first temporary license to operate.
License to operate.
Yes.
Opo, yun na yun.
Permit to operate, license to operate for a year before accreditation. Permit to operate.
Permit to operate and then accreditation.
Yes.
Yun yung ginagamit natin. But if in the new light now that we have new information, baka yung dati natin ginagamit, hindi na siya appropriate.
Baka hindi siya appropriate.
Oo.
Baka hindi siya appropriate. Kaya tayo nagkakaroon ng
Well, yun nga, sabi ko sa inyo, the reason why the term was used is because yung accreditation kasi yung nakalagay sa provisions ng batas. Yun lang yung rationale for the previous board issuances. But actually, we acknowledge na dapat first procedure would be to license. No, look at minimum requirements before, ito kasi higher na to, itong accreditation. And that's the reason why yun ang na-adapt to board regulations, yung mga previous board regulations natin. No? But anyway, pag-usapan nyo rin, Joe, no? Kung kailangan magkaroon ng another step tayo. No? Private centers, what do you think?
Sa amin, I think we have been undergoing from DOH accreditations, and ang problem lang, since papasok po yung sa outpatient, and then sabi nga, pag-iisa yun, isang license, paano yun? Kasi ang requirement yata ngayon, kailangan namin i-ipan muna sa DOH yung aming outpatient, matingnan nila and everything. Eh, since existing outpatient namin, so, magkaroon ng kakaibang ano naman yan, parang licensing or accreditation. outpatient?
Separate.
Separate?
Separate yung outpatient nyo within the facility or standalone?
Within the facility.
Within. Within Joe.
I think that's my question also. It's a category C, residential outpatient.
Mark, pakibalik na ulit
So
dun sa...
when a facility applies for category C, that means that they will be, they should be presenting two kinds of programs.
Yes.
Yes. So, and the two kinds of programs should be individually, separately accredited. Accredited. No?
Accreditation.
Sige pa, Mark. Baba.
Services being...
Hindi, taas pala, taas. Yan.
Ngayon, dalawa ng program yung dalawang program in one facility. So isa na lang. But as a facility, I should present two kinds of programs too. Hindi na. You will maybe my question should be, will you be checking the outpatient
And the
inpatient, or okay lang, some
we have yet to develop a separate assessment tool for that. No?
why don't you just use the existing outpatient and then
That is possible. I-combine na lang.
combine na lang natin?
Sir, there are certain standards for an outpatient and for a residential.
Yeah.
Pero it doesn't mean that you have a good residential facility na automatic yung outpatient mo good din.
Exactly. That's the reason
Diba?
why.
So just sana separate na lang.
I think, anyway, we will release this matter from sa each back.
I believe you need to look into both programs.
Both, yes.
No, inpatient and outpatient.
So,
just in case, magpapa-accredit sila using category 3. Kasi magkaiba yun eh. Magkaiba yung inpatient program niya sa outpatient program. It just so happen na iisa yung facility nila. But magkaiba yung program.
Ang isang nakita namin, kasi po nag-apply po kami ng accreditation for outpatient, they are requiring us to provide different ER for both. Isang pang ER ng ano.
Yung kasi yung previous. This time, hindi na. They will look into the program, no? But yung facility would be one and the same.
So isa na lang.
Sorry, we use the term emergency clinic, hindi ER.
Yeah.
Emergency room is talagang mandang requirements po.
Emergency.
Simple lang po ang emergency clinic. Aside from that, I may recall, no, Dr. Yanez, sa TWT na punta sa accreditation of drug testing laboratory. Sabi niya kasi, we use the term accreditation also for drug testing laboratories, even initial pa lang, because of the legal base of the law. And aside from that, in a way, license is subsumed in accreditation.
But as long as we can show it, no, na yung sabi ko nga, ginagawa nyo naman yun eh, yung licensing eh. No? May pakita lang natin na it's a necessary kumbaga step.
Yung dalawang procedure, ang ongoing practice natin is permit to construct, step 1, and then step 2 is accreditation. If things change,
Siguro mamaya natin pag-usapan bien pagdating doon sa part na yun.
kasi in relation to the word accreditation at licensing. So magiging permit to construct, licensing, and then accreditation. Tatlong steps na ngayon ang gagawin ng mga centers.
Well, internal na yun sa BHFS. Pwede naman yung part ng procedure na lang yun.
Anyway, TWT naman ang dito eh.
Group naman tayong bumibisita sa facility, di ba?
Sir Chair, suggestion ko yung category C. Huwag na lang. Inpatient na lang.
Paki-baba mo pa sa baba.
Inpatient na lang and outpatient. So if I'm a facility and I would like to...
Sumobra.
I would like to put up an outpatient. Kunwari, I applied for inpatient. And then later on, I found out, you know what? I want to put up an outpatient. I apply ko na lang. Kasi ang mahirap yung sa dual, nakikita ko, after a while, kung hindi na sila mag-outpatient. So, ang category nila, inpatient, outpatient pa rin. Sa Amerika, wala naman inpatient, outpatient. So, you just add na lang, like for example, if I'm an outpatient, I decided to put up an inpatient, I'll just apply for an inpatient program. So, in that way, the monitoring will not be that hard. Kasi standardized na siya. We already have an existing inpatient and an existing outpatient monitoring. See, I heard you said, sige, we'll come up with how to monitor. But it's very simple. We just need to use the monitoring mechanism of an outpatient and of an inpatient.
Comment.
May I have a answer, Mr. Chair? Kasi like yung facility nila, Chester, Naki?
Okay. Ito sa...
Oo. Meron mga facilities na mga areas na pwedeng gamitin ng both the outpatient and the inpatient. So, for convenience in itself, parang isang punta na lang, kung ikaw yung qualified na mag-outpatient, inpatient, isang puntahan na lang, isang accreditation, isang inspection, isang licensing, tapos na lahat. Hindi na kailangan pupuntahan pa kayo for outpatient, and then after a while, pupuntahan pa kayo for inpatient, and then yung mga joint services, mga pwede like clinic, for example, yung kailangan ng kitchen, emergency services, isang anuhan na lang siya, magkakasama na siya. So, special siya. And then after a while, siguro every 3 years naman yan di ba? Every 3 years ba ating renewal? Sa renewal, kung hindi na sila mag-qualify sa pwede i-change na yung kanilang status. Pwede na silang either outpatient or inpatient. Let's say, hindi na nila ginagawa yung inpatient. So it will give everybody more choices. Kung gusto mo outpatient lang, kung gusto mo inpatient lang, kung gusto mo pareho, meron kang choices.
What yung nangyari dito sa is we have an existing outpatient for going for 20 years now. Ngayon, gusto mong upgrade ng outpatient. Ano nangyari? Yun nga, kailangan kasi i-comply lahat ng mga requirements and i-separate yun nga, yung emergency clinic and everything, which is provided naman na dun sa loob ng facility, which I think yung sa amin ni Rob, pwede naman i-consider yung mga other facilities na ang i-accredit lang is yung program itself and shared.
Ano decision niyo? Basically, tama naman yun lang naman talaga titignan mo dun yung program No? So if the facility is applying for both an inpatient and an outpatient accreditation, basically titignan mo yung program. Hindi naman necessarily na hanapan mo dalawang EA, for example. Diba? Yun naman ang intention din ng board rec. Oo, yung program ang titignan natin, hindi yung...
So, if I'm going to be applying for the category C, I'll be submitting the two programs.
The programs?
Yeah, that's the program. That's what I asked kanina.
Yung siyempre iba yung program ng outpatient at saka sa residential. Facilities-wise, shared mo ba?
So, hindi po basta yung residential.
Outpatient lang ang accreditation.
Yun. Okay, yeah, that's clear now. So, outpatient ka lang.
So, yung decision remains to be with BFS.
So, I need to comply with the, or vice versa. So, ang pumasa yung residential dito sa atin.
Residential ka lang. Pero, hintayin natin gawin nila yung
categories pa lang yan, dami na natin. Sige. Ay, ganda. Dito. Sige, Mark, saan ba tayo?
for the technical requirements for accreditation.
Yeah.
So for a center to be accredited, it shall comply with the following technical requirements. Refer to the manual of operations for the accreditation of that persons for specific details. Service capability. These are services provided in accordance with its physical plant, personnel, and equipment. Personnel, minimum staffing of qualified and trained physicians and drug rehabilitation practitioners. Equipment or instruments, minimum equipment or instruments to perform the required services. Physical plant, well ventilated, lighted, clean and safe with adequate water supply and functional structures sufficient to accommodate the different activities in that RC. Manual of Operations is a document describing the administrative as well as technical policies and procedures of the center. It must contain, among others, the background of the center, admission and exclusion criteria, description of services offered, treatment modality, major policies, disciplinary measures, source of funds, and aftercare or referral services. The manual shall be based mainly on and should be consistent with the manual of operations for the accreditation of the RCs. Center personnel shall be well-oriented of the content of the manual of operations. Quality improvement activities. The center shall establish and maintain a system for continuous quality improvement activities. Staff protection policy. The center should develop policy under the human resource management on prevention of any forms of violence against the center, staff, by a patient or a fellow employee. Next is the maintenance of a set of information technology equipment. The center shall conform with the minimum IT requirement set by the DDD or the DOH. Allowable service fees. All private residential centers shall allocate 5% of the total beds for inpatient patients. Government residential centers must not exceed 50% of the total bed allocation for paying patients. Discounted rates shall be based on the guidelines prescribed by the Department of Social Welfare and Development. Further, cost sharing in the treatment and rehabilitation of any dependent shall follow what is prescribed in Section 74 of the RA 9165. That is for the cost sharing mechanism of treatment and rehabilitation.
So sa fees, kids, hindi tayo nagpe-prescribe ng ceiling, ano?
Wala.
Pero, sige, bali mamaya ako i-propose yung question. Kasi rin sa drug dependency information, accept tayo, di ba?
Ay, yung nagbibago kami sila.
Sige.
Sige. Next is the procedure and guidelines for Certificate of Accreditation. So, again, the accreditation is not centralized to include our Centers for Health Development or the regional offices of the DOH. Number one is the issuance of permit to construct for non-residential and residential RCs. The applicant shall secure a permit to construct from HFSRB or CHD for construction of a new facility, alteration, expansion, or renovation of an existing health facility, change in classification, or increase in bed capacity. It is a prerequisite for accreditation.
Joe, yan din ba yung ginagamit nyo for hospitals, basically? Same procedure?
Yes po.
Kasi nga yung point kanina ni Claire, di ba, yung licensing prior to accreditation. Although internally, yung procedure nasa send yun sa HFS.
The same. And we only have one pager na yan. Kaya annex na niya, list of personnel, list of equipment, instruments.
Sa understanding natin, internal send yung licensing procedure. No, kasi nga magkaiba talaga yung licensing and accreditation, higher standard yung tinitingnan natin sa...
Sa i-clarify ko, Hana, hindi lang po OFW clinics ng accreditation ginagamit na sa RC. There are testing laboratory also, kidney transplant unit, accreditation din yun. Outright yun po, wala na license, accreditation. Pati ang laboratory for drinking water analysis, accreditation po yan. Marami pa rin pa. Actually, we use the term accreditation. Wala nang license.
Sige, kaya naman pinoint out yun. Na-release kasi yun sa motherboard ni Yusek Villar ng DSWD. So at least let it be put on record. Na-discuss natin yun.
issuance of certificate of accreditation. For new facility, it must secure a certificate of accreditation prior to its operation. The applicant shall accomplish the required documents and submit them to HFSRB or CHD. For the renewal of accreditation, application shall be filed with HFSRB or CHD within the required period as prescribed in the administrative issuance of DOH. An accreditation that is not renewed within the required period shall be considered lapsed and registration shall be cancelled. A new application for registration and issuance of certificate of accreditation shall be required before a center can be allowed to operate. A separate accreditation shall be required for all centers maintained in separate premises but operated under the same management.
Separate premises. So kung same branch, halimbawa, family wellness, nagtayo ng family wellness branch sa Davao, ano yun? Kailangan mo ng separate?
Yes.
Okay.
Separate. Just like in other health facilities.
Yeah.
Actually, di ba pagka nag-transfer ka, you have to re-accredit? Now, you have to see
Yes, yes. Transfer of site.
Transfer.
Start from permit to start.
That's for transfer. But for another branch, another accreditation process.
Yeah. Mag-undergo din ng pag-process sa permit to start.
Next will be the payment of fees. The following application fees for initial and renewal of certificate of accreditation shall be paid to the cashier of the DOH. So for non-residential center, fees for permit to construct will be 1,000 pesos, as well as for the residential center and residential center with outpatient service. However, accreditation fees varies for non-residential center having 6,000 pesos, residential center for 14,000 pesos, and residential center with outpatient service for 15,000 pesos. Discount rate shall be applied to the accreditation fee for filing earlier during the prescribed period of submission of application for renewal of certificate of accreditation.
Ano yan? Tumaas ba yan from the previous? Or as is? As is ba yan from the previous? Kala ko naman, ang taas kayo eh. So as is lang pala yan. Okay.
Ang bago lang din yung residential center with outpatient. Siya lang yung bago kasi it's a new service. So yung may discount rate and then this shall be based on the guidelines. Okay. For the discount rate, this shall be based on the guidelines to be issued by the Department of Health. The above fees may also be adjusted by DOH if deemed necessary.
For instance, kasi, ang renewal period starts in October. So, 3 months from October to December. Kung nag-apply ko for sa October, so early yun, you're given a 10% discount.
By the way, before we proceed, let me just acknowledge si Ms. Keisha Melchor, our member from the DSWD. So yung pala yung discount.
Yeah, ang sa advantage kasi dyan, para hindi magsabay-sabay. Kasi kapag December, last minute na mag-apply lahat, napupurahan naman kami masyado. So ang iba talaga, October pa lang nag-apply na. So we encourage early filing of application.
Dapat doon dati 20,000 lang, di ba?
Yes.
Tama ba? So tumaas siya, naging 30. Okay, so bad money ito, meaning pag nagsarado yung facility, they can get that amount. Ganun ba?
Yes, sir. That is refundable po.
Okay.
Registration and penalty.
Sa accreditation po, may penalty or even maaaring magkaroon ng lapse. Halimbawa, June, after December, kasi after December 31 lang. Kung hindi pa nag-apply, so mag-lapse, para mag-start ang accreditation mo ngayon ng later pa for January or February, kung kailan ka nag-apply at kung magkaroon ng lapse. For instance, sa hospital, ayaw nila magkaroon ng loss because of yung adverse effects sa PhilHealth claims.
By the way, we would also like to acknowledge our partners from APADA. No? Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Afternoon po.
Sige, Joe. Kids.
So, about 30,000 pesos per center per branch applied po.
Okay.
Next po is the residential.rc with outpatient service capability. The following guidelines shall be followed by applicant whose residential center also provides outpatient service. Number 1 is the outpatient facility shall be located within the premises or perimeter area of a residential.rc and may be situated adjacent to its administrative zone. However, there shall be no access between the outpatient facility and the residential zone or living quarters area. Number 2, requirements for the physical plant shall be in accordance with the specifications provided in the MOP for the accreditation of RCs. However, the outpatient service may utilize common facilities such as client reception and waiting area, administrative office, counseling and psychological testing room, and emergency clinic of residential.rc as approved by HFSRB or CHD based on the issued permit to construct. Conduct of activities in these specific areas must be properly scheduled. Next is medical records. Room may be shared by the outpatient facility with the residential center. However, clear delineation of filing of patient records with that of inpatient should be strictly observed. Adequate additional space shall be provided to accommodate files for outpatient. Number 4, the required staffing pattern for non-residential.rc as prescribed in the manual of operations for the accreditation of RCs has been complied with, and the application fee of 15,000 pesos shall be paid for this purpose. Next is the content of the Certificate of Accreditation. The Certificate of Accreditation shall indicate on its face the following: the name of the health facility, the location at which the treatment and rehabilitation services shall be provided, name of the owner or operator of the center, service capability, authorized bed capacity, and period for which it is valid. The Certificate of Accreditation shall be signed by the Bureau or the CHD Director. Next po, validity. The Certificate of Accreditation shall be valid for a period of 3 years. So we say 3 years. Monitoring of centers. The HFSRB shall require all accredited centers to regularly upload patients' profile to Treatment and Rehabilitation Admission Information System or the TRAIS, formerly known as the Integrated Drug Abuse Data and Information System Form 606. That RC whose application for Certificate of Accreditation is already on process shall also be required to upload patients' profile to TRAIS. However, if within a year, the said facility failed to secure its Certificate of Accreditation, its account shall be terminated from TRAIS. Guidelines on TRAIS implementation shall be adopted once issued by the Dangerous Drugs Board.
So, ang bago lang dyan, ito, no? At pag nag-submit na ng application for accreditation yung facility, they can now use itong TRAIS system natin. No? We can monitor them. This was actually inserted to also allow yung mga non-accredited facilities ngayon na naglipa na, no? Sobrang dami. Sobrang dami, yet wala tayong monitoring sa kanila. And so, they need to be held accountable then. No? But at the same time, we want to be fair. We're giving them a chance, no? Submit to the accreditation requirements of the Department of Health, no? And hopefully comply. No? Yun ang gusto natin mangyari. So, ang atmosphere natin dito tulungan eh. Ano? We want to help them, mga private facilities na non-accredited, but at the same time, they must comply with the requirements of the Department of Health.
Can I just suggest to change the word regularly to timely?
Regularly and timely upload. No? And timely upload. Para kasi regular na nagsasabit sa amin, kaya lang 1 year later.
Yes.
No? So kailangan namin yung information yearly basis, no? Kasi Timely. Okay, that's a good...
After 2 years.
Yeah.
Na yung ano
3 years para
Alam ko,
annual report ko lang.
Kaya naman sa'yo, 3 years na. No, yun lang. No? Kasi ang daming delayed submission kaming na-encounter. Sige.
Next po is the HFSRB or CHD may conduct an on-site monitoring of the accredited center. It is required for the CHD regulatory officers to coordinate with the HFSRB before the conduct of monitoring and furnish the latter with a report of the findings. The monitoring visits shall be unannounced and conducted during regular office hours. HFSRB or CHD monitoring team shall be allowed unrestricted ocular inspection of the center, access to any case file or charts of patients, random chart reviews, and individual or group interviews with patients and or employees of the center. Next is for the complaints and violations. Complaints against that RCs shall be handled by HFSRB or CHD. It shall be reviewed immediately for the conduct of fact-finding investigation if necessary. A copy of the resolution or final decision shall be forwarded to the DDB for the latter's information or appropriate action. Violations of the Comprehensive Dangerous Drugs Act of 2002 or the rules and regulations issued in pursuance thereto include but not limited to the following. Number 1 is the conviction of the owner or manager of the center for a criminal offense committed as an incident to its operation. Number 2 is the violation of confidentiality of records. Number 3, failure to comply with the standards and requirements of the DOH. Number 4 is the refusal of the center to allow HFSRB or CHD monitoring team to conduct a survey of the center. Number 5 is the non-compliance to the set policies and procedures, which includes verified report of human rights violations, subhuman conditions, and inadequate medical training and assistance. Number 6 is operating without the required accreditation from HFSRB or CH.
Case, Tony, PJ, please.
So regarding sa number 5 at number 6, sa RA 9165 sa section 81, yung sa number 5 at number 6, yung DTB has the authority to initiate and authorize closure ng mga facilities na hindi na comply nitong 5 and 6. So siguro sir, gawa natin ng paraan na parang mailagay yun doon kasi baka ma-technical. So kunwari kasi ang premise natin dito is yung FHSRB or CHD. So ang mangyayari kasi sir, based doon sa section 76, ang authority ng DOH covers yung mga violations under RA at saka regulations na issued ng DDB. Pero merong specific provision na ang DDB pwede mag-initiate and authorize closure with the assistance of PIDEA kapag instances na covered ng 5 at 6. So, para clarify lang natin, sir.
So, pag-isipan na lang natin dyan kung ano ba yung magandang wording. Dadagdag lang namin yan, please. Sir. Sige, wala mo po. Asik na, please.
Shall be forwarded to the DDB for the latter's information and or appropriate action.
Okay. Okay, paki-note na lang.
I clarify lang din po. For the 5 and 6 po, parang it would be like a delegated or authorized function of the, parang gano'n po yung mga
parang gano'n. So, he can actually authorize DOH and PIDEA. For ang point lang ni PIDEA, it should be expressly stated under the board regulation. Wala namang problema yung delegation. Para lang ma-reflect natin yung provisions of the law.
Yeah, tama na sa pagpulyo. The DDB to initiate and authorize closure proceedings against airing or that RCs. Pero ang implementation po ay to be implemented by PIDEA.
Actually, nilagay namin yan, PIDEA and DOH. Kasi ang sinasabi last time ng DOH, hindi nila maisara kasi wala silang authority. So now we're giving the Department of Health the same authority. Of course, you can seek assistance sa PIDEA anytime. Wala namang problema yan.
If it's not an express authority delegated, it could be elevated to the board for action, and then the board will then order PIDEA to close or do something about that.
PIDEA and DOH. Sige, that way, we will report it such a way na ma-reflect yun.
Yung para 2 is very general eh. Violations of, parang in-enumerate yun na lang yung mga violations relative to rehab, di ba? So, hindi naman sinabi niya kung sino yung dapat na mag-initiate yung mga proceedings.
Next will be for the penalties. HFSRB or CHD on its own or based on complaint may investigate and after hearing shall impose necessary penalties as follows. First offense would be written warning. Second offense would be for 20,000 pesos. Third offense is 50,000 pesos and or suspension of certificate of accreditation. May fourth offense pa po. That would be the revocation of certificate of accreditation and forfeiture of the cash bond. Once revoked, the owner is prohibited from applying for accreditation for a period of 1 year.
How long, sir, is the suspension classified as the third offense?
Preventive suspension shall be not more than 60 days.
Does this refer to penal suspension or preventive suspension? Preventive. For the third offense, no, for the penal for the penal suspension, wala hindi specific period, in specified period. What I know is that, the the law does not specify, you should not specify, and then depending on the surrounding circumstances, that the period suspension could be kasi depending on the circumstances. Like yung sa other laws kasi nag-specify sa lang talagang this is dapat ano ito, yung personal correctional, the personal or then
if the COA is suspended, ang mga pasyente para labasin.
Mayroon po provision yan.
So, ganun din naman.
Penal suspension, no. That's a preventive suspension, hindi po. Continuous. Kasi, hindi ako admission.
Qualify yung sa certificate suspension o certificate of, doon sa una, doon sa third offense. Nakalagay sa ganyan, suspension of certificate of accreditation. Hindi nyo kinqualify kung preventive o penal.
Yeah. Parang may provision sa later, I don't know, parang nabasa doon sa later maybe, kung anong effect ng penal suspension, effect ng preventive suspension.
Anong suggestion dyan? Let's define. No? Kasi tama yung point ng check eh. Medyo gray area siya. Anong suggestion mo dyan?
Penal suspension no longer preventive kasi penalty nito.
The third offense.
Suspension, hindi pa naman siya penalty.
Okay.
So we're talking here sa mga offenses ako na yan, we're talking of penal na. Penal.
Sige. Pakiatin nga ulit, Mark. So, tingnan nyo nasa itaas.
Yung query din kasi dyan, sir, yung suspension na yan, gano'ng katagal? Diba? Kasi yung isa, preventive, yung 60 days yun. Pero pag itong penal, kasi i-consider mo rin yung fourth kasi revocation eh. So parang, kasi diba pag suspended yung ano mo, hindi ka pwedeng tumanggap. So parang similar din siya doon sa sa fourth. Yung suspension at yung revocation kasi same effect. Although, yung sa fourth nga, may 1 year. Siguro yung ano natin dito, sir, third offense, maglagay tayo ng term or ano sir, o period pala.
Sige. Ano ba yung usually na-apply nyo? 60 days? So 60 days, they cannot admit any new clients. Any new client pag sa third offense. And then sa fourth offense, since revocation na yan, we will ask them to notify yung patients to look for new facilities, basically.
Tapos dapat may provision din kayo. Ano ang magiging ng pasyente habang holding pa sila? Dapat may holding pa rin kayo na for those that will be transiting. Tapos sana, yung may investigated after due process siguro. Lagay natin yung due process. After hearing, parang one way lang. Doon sa taas, may info yan, no? On its own based on complaint, investigated
and after due process,
shall impose necessary penalties as follows.
If I may,
sige John.
I'm not a lawyer, pero I know kasi when you say hearing, that is part of the process, is supporting both parties, both the complainants and the respondents, the opportunity to be heard.
That's your only mechanism ba, hearing?
Ang hearing, that this is administrative case. In a dispute case, a trial type of hearing is not necessary. It's not that both parties were afforded the process of law. Given an opportunity to be heard.
Kasi pag sinabi mong may investigate and after due process, that encompasses every process.
Yes. Yes po.
Kasi pag hearing lang sinabi mo dyan, hearing lang gagawin natin.
Ang hearing, pwedeng sulat-sulat na, kasi administrative case ito, unlike in criminal case, it needs a trial type talaga. Here, in hearing in administrative case, trial type of hearing is not necessary. It's enough that both parties were given an opportunity to be heard, and it is a hearing na rin po yan.
Kaya ano, would it be better if you just place there after investigation and after due process? That encompasses everything na hearing and everything.
Actually, ang hearing is only one aspect. You need to notify them of the complaint. Were they given the chance to come up with a counsel to answer on their behalf? I mean, that is all encompassed with the due process. Pero hearing lang yan. Mas maganda na. I mean, for a more inclusive term, due process na.
You can do hearings. Nasa sa inyo, no? Just to include everything para catch all.
Sige po. Noted po. May legal naman tayo dyan eh. To me. Kasi, I'm heading the complaint and action unit of the Bureau. And if we receive a complaint, we write the respondent. This refers to the attached complaint letter from the related to the alleged detention of the patient or whatever. So that is submitted to 0 to 3 days, like that. So that is already giving the...
That's part of due process.
Part of the process. Kahit nasabi niyo kung paano yung word. Open naman tayo dyan.
Okay. Yung difference nung yung nabagay ko kanina ng third offense at fourth offense, ang difference ng suspension at saka ng revocation. Kasi, ewan ko kung tama yung intindi ko. Kasi pag suspension ka, hindi ka pwede mag-function. Diba, sir? Pag revocation, talo na rin. So, ano yung difference ng suspension at saka ng revocation? May fourth pa kasi siya, sir. So, at saka yun lang yung yung query ko, pati yung period under third offense. So, yun lang, anong difference ng suspension at ng revocation?
Also, suspension, halimbawa, kung nag-set tayo po ng, halimbawa, your accreditation is suspended for 2 months, so after 2 months, you can resume. Pero pag once revocation, tanggal na talaga yung accreditation.
Dapat nga talaga maglagay tayo ng period. So, siguro not exceeding number of
Ano,
months.
2 months o 60 days?
So parang may equate natin kapag suspension siya, mas mababa doon sa 1 year na revocation. So based dito sa regulation natin, kapag revocation, automatic siya 1 year. Whereas kapag suspension, mga number of months. So ganun ba yung natin doon, yung difference. So mas mababa lang kapag suspension. At saka after nag-lapse na yung suspension, pwede ka na mag-operate ulit. Oh, yeah. So, lagyan lang natin siguro ng period.
Siguro, we can also define, sabi nga ni Asik Len, what will happen to a facility under suspension? Just for the facility to know what to expect then. If you're suspended, please.
Pangdagdag pang pagulo. A few paragraphs down, meron pa rin ditong penal at saka preventive suspension. So, if you look at it, parang hindi ko alam saan papasok dyan.
Oo. Baka na-doble lang. Hindi kaya?
Meron sa baba na parang
Meron pa?
additional
Anong difference nun, kids?
Pakita na rin natin para isang
Sige, para isang... Kasi we're talking about penalties. Di ba nga natin pinag-uusapan kung similar offense ba yan o another offense?
Sige, sir. Ayan. So, di ba yung fourth offense ko na revocation? So, guidelines for classification of offenses, whether minor, major, or critical, with corresponding penalties shall be set by the DOH.
So, ito na yan.
If upon survey or monitoring visits, the center is found incurring or violating relevant rules and regulations, the HFS or the RCHD may immediately preventively suspend the operation of the center. Preventive suspension shall not be more than 60 days. During the preventive suspension, the RC shall stop from admitting new patients except those with court order, but may retain or continue providing treatment and rehabilitation service to those already confined or admitted. During penal suspension, the center shall stop from operating at that RC and transfer all patients to accredited that RC of petitioner's choice. Last paragraph, under penalties would be the HFS or CHD shall issue closure order if the center is found operating without the required accreditation and or having substandard rehabilitation to drug dependence without prejudice to filing of other charges in courts. The closure order shall be forwarded to the DDP for the latter's initiation and authorization of closure proceedings to be implemented by DOH and or PIDEA. All patients shall be transferred to accredited RC of petitioner's choice.
So, if I understand correctly, the preceding paragraphs define yung ganun ba? Yung content nung first, second, third offense nyo. No? Parang yan sinasabi niya na what will happen if the facility is preventively suspended. Nandito na ngayon.
Hindi nasa tapos sabi na penal na yun, di ba? Yung first, second.
Yung may offenses nakalagay doon yung first offense, second, penal na po yun.
Penal.
Penal.
So ano itong nasa baba? Kasi the way I'm looking at it, parang you're now defining ano ba yung laman ng bawat offense. So, kasi may closure ka rin dyan, which provides for what to do under the fourth offense. Closure or revocation. O baka kailangan lang i-restructure natin ito. For every offense, lalagay mo na yung kasunod. Baka hindi lang na-restructure properly, Reg.
So, yung sa preventive, nagugulat ako yun. During the preventive suspension, I'm curious, what does the Bureau, what will be the Bureau doing? I mean, of course, the center is temporarily will not admit, no? In the meantime, ano yung, I think this is a bit similar to what Attorney Vera Cruz was asking earlier. What's the difference? Ano ngayon na nangyayari? Anong ginagawa ng ano? For example, if it's administrative, curious lang po.
Effectively suspended kasi wala pang decision daw whether kung baka liable or not. So we, ang process pa yung ano po, may video process pa kasi. So sagutan mo na or probably may fact-finding investigation if necessary.
So you mean after, so that means before 60 days, dapat meron ng decision
within
60 days. If they will operate or if they will be allowed to operate or they will be asked to stop.
Kasi may decision na dito eh. there should be a decision na whether liable or not, or para mapatawa na ng written warning, or kung depende sa ilang offense na po.
Di mo ba dapat mas nauna yung preventive, yung discussion ng preventive bago yung penal?
Correct po.
Kasi nauna na yung mga offenses mo eh. Tapos bilang may preventive, di ba dapat ito investigation period po, di ba? So dapat nauna siya bago mo enumerate yung mga penalties.
Yun nga, yung mention mo kanina baka yung restructuring, ayusin lang natin. No? Kasi nauna yung penal, bago natin describe yung anong mangyari sa prevention. Ayusin lang natin yan. Ha?
Yung excuse me, yung pag-preventive may kasama na ba yung reprimand or something? Kasi ang sabi, ang context is found incurring or violating relevant rules. Tapos ang i-stop mo lang yung admission. Eh kung do you persist, kung nag-persist yung wrongdoing while the investigation is ongoing. Ano ba yun? Parang
Actually, that's connected to my question. So, kung preventive, tuloy pa rin yung operation. Hindi lang sila pwedeng tumanggap ng no. But the issue is not the patients eh. The issue is operational eh. It's the system eh.
There's something wrong,
So,
kaya nga na-preventive.
parang walang connection yung na...
What has been done? Aside from deterring them from getting more patients. So, meron bang, di ba dapat meron something?
Sige, Joe, ano bang nangyayari sa loob?
I-report ko lang dito kasi meron pang naging konsala sa hospital kasi may admission to eh.
Okay.
You cannot just close a hospital.
Okay.
That's the reason why we have a written warning for the first offense. Pero meron kaming kwan dito sa time post na for the first offense, written warning, written warning. Kasi we cannot just stop the hospital. Kasi
we understand that Joe. What we want to know is what's happening dun sa facility while they are under preventive suspension.
For example, there was an airing personnel. So what happens to the airing personnel? You only suspend admission, and what hurts is the owner. It hurts the facility, but not the airing personnel. Diba? Kasi hindi naman mismo programa may diferensya. Maybe it's the execution of the program. Maybe yung personnel ang may diferensya. So what happens to the personnel? Ang pinapersecute mo, yung hindi magpapasok na bagong admission. Ito yung may-ari ang maaano doon. Pero meron lang palang single person na is negligent. So what happens to the person that is negligent?
yeah, in that case kasi, papasok yan sa either sa PRC, nirefer sa PRC for a separate administrative case kung mayroong PRC license. Unfortunately, sa regular court po, for civil or criminal case.
Ano naman eh, under investigation nyo pa sabi nyo, hindi pa nyo
Wala pang decision.
Time, what happens nga?
So stop admitting patients.
Hindi, but personnel, okay lang siyang sige pa na kung siya may problema. Kung sabihin mo na nakit yung personnel.
I think it's up to the owner kasi in the end, he's the captain of the ship.
So, case to case, depending on the offense, will be addressed by the
center, not
by
the individual.
The program and the facility para naman.
Kasi ano siya, the owner is the...
Siguro mention lang natin yun, just to be, kasi nga, just to show na may nangyayari while the facility is under preventive suspension. I-mention lang natin na yun nga, may ginagawa ka, depending on the offense, no? Type of the offense. Kasi maybe personnel related, maybe program related, maraming offense yan eh.
Mr. Chair, I think doon papasok yung employee policies regarding
personnel related. No.
So I think the Bureau should be able to also make sure that the center has certain policies regarding, like if it's an admin, kung admin yung violation, or kung sa counseling naman, kung ano yung ano consequences,
which should be based from the manual for operations.
Dapat,
lahat, program, personnel, dapat nandito.
Which I think meron eh. I think meron eh. So,
Mr. Chair, before, if I may, Mr. Chair, I think there are two sections to this, there are two subsections to this, the penalties. The first one would be sa pinakauna, based on complaints, and the second one is based upon survey or monitoring. So, mas maganda siguro kung linawin natin na yung dalawang yun kasi magkaiba ang action na ginagawa natin. So, dun sa based on complaints, nakalagay naman dito warning, first offense, third offense, yung suspension, hindi tayo malinaw kung preventive or penal. I believe it's penal, no, Joe? And then dun sa survey monitoring, yung preventive suspension, wala naman, if I may add sana kung, of course, they stop admitting, but they're also required to correct.
Corrective action.
Oo. And
provide corrective action. Sige.
Within 60 days siguro. And then of course,
para malinaw, regardless kung ano man yung offense na ginawa, at least may corrective action na ginagawa.
Kailangan may report.
Teacher, you have something to say?
Siguro based lang din po sa experience namin ng mga accreditation at licensing ng mga centers and mga facilities. Usually po pag may cover na ng mga findings po yung tama, may kalaki po kasi na recommendation na which is yung center yung dapat na ginagawa within that period of suspension. So, ibig sabihin, hindi ka magpapasok ng client. However, yung center, pinoproseso niya yung mga findings na nakita ng DOH on yung sa kanyang category. So, yun yung usually ganun po yung ginagawa namin sa department. Hindi siya, as is pa din po yung license and accreditation. However, may mga findings for them to comply and then yung recommendations. Tapos after that period, dapat po yung mga, iba-iba din po kasi yung date na dapat nilang ma-comply based sa findings. So dapat po, within that 60-day period, may mga process silang nasusunod. Which is yun po yung babalikan ng nagla-license at nag-monitor.
I think that's what Attorney Vera Cruz was asking earlier. Ano yung nangyayari during that, like for example, in the suspension? Suspended lang ba? So, I think that's the reason why we're having this discussion. Is maybe we can include that in the within the period of 60 days. Very clear.
So basically, kagaya sinabi ni Keisha, yung monitoring team, kung sino man yung nag-monitor, no, should provide recommendations to the facility. No? Na i-comply dapat yun within yung 60 days na yun. Ilagay lang natin yun, dagdag lang natin para malinaw kung ano nangyari while we are under preventive suspension.
So, ang lifting of suspension is dependent on the compliance of those recommendations. Not automatic after 60 days lifted.
Tama.
but if they're not compliant after 60 days.
They can be, yun na sa operation. Yun. Okay. Malinaw.
When you mean offense, anong offense yan? If you commit another offense not similar to the first offense, ano yun? Another offense na naman yun.
Okay.
So there are many offenses that can be committed. So what's the first offense? First offense of the one offense. First offense of the second offense. Ano ba offense?
Okay. Are we talking about one same offense? Or it could apply to different offenses? Yung una, first program offense. Now, yung pangalawa, naging personal offense. So, are we talking about, ano ba yan?
Case-to-case basis siguro, Mr. Chair. Kasi, di ba sa StatCon attorney, mga lawyers, or kayo, where the law does not specify, this is the rule, di ba? Where the law does not specify, since the law does not specify that the same offense could be considered as a second offense. So, any offense.
So, any offense. Basta pag pangalawa ka na, binibilang natin ilang beses nag-o-offend sa iyo yung facility. Regardless kung anong offense niya. Program offense yung una, isa human rights violation. Pangalawang na yun. Parang gano'n. Sige.
May term pa kasi, di ba, sa 1 month, sa law ninyo, meron silang recidivism for the same offense. The same offense, paulit-ulit, recidivism na yung term.
That
Sige,
could be,
basta
that could be
agreement
considered
natin.
as an aggravating circumstance.
Basta ang agreement natin, various offenses ito ha. Ang binibilang natin how many times the facility has committed any offense. No, yun ang agreement natin.
Any offense.
And I ask the question,
Okay.
what will happen if they'll ignore you?
Ayan. What will happen if they ignore you? Close. Close yan.
Burn down the facility or what?
Close yan.
Okay, so,
Sige.
if I may, Mr. Chair, kung hindi sila, if they don't comply after a period of, recommended is 60 days, then revocation ng kanilang, ano yung penal suspension or closure of the facility.
And then the DOH should outline the procedure for the transfer of the patients. Kasi kung sila, hindi nila gagawin yun. Para kumikita pa rin sila. So, you should lay the provisions for that transfer should revocation happen.
Matanong ko pa, anong agency may enforcement arm mo?
Sir, if I may quote dun sa pinakadulo, sir, the HFSRB shall issue a closure order found operating without the then and so on and so forth. The closure of order shall be forwarded to the DTB for the latter's initiation and authorization of closure proceedings to be implemented by both DOH and dapat hindi airport, dapat DOH and PIDEA, and all patients shall be transferred to accredited RC of petitioner's choice. Plus yung dinagdag ni
Question mo sa inyo, Joe. Pag halimbawa may hospital nag-violate, paano yung pinapasarado?
So far kasi wala pa tayong sila. Actually, yung written warning pa lang eh. First offense pa lang kasi, yung written warning. Second offense.
But the reason why we place their DOH and or PIDEA, precisely to test the mental, no? Tingnan natin, dapat magpasarado ang DOH, hindi pwedeng wala pa tayong napapasarado.
Mayroon kami po na because of the violation of ito medyo anti-hospital deposit law. So sa bureau level po, ay sinususpend po namin ang license ng hospital for 1 month. Nag-appeal po sa Office of the Secretary, the bureau's decision was reversed po in favor of the hospital po. And therefore, hindi po na...
Kasi last time, we were talking to the legal office of the Department of Health. The legal office of the Department of Health was saying, wala raw silang legal basis, no, to close the facility. Eh, ito na nga, we're now providing you with the legal basis. No? Kasi, kayo ang nag-license, kayo nag-accredit, tapos hindi nyo mapasara. I mean, parang logic yun. Yan daw logic.
Mr. Chair, this is not to say na hindi kami magsasara. It's just happened na first offense pa lang kasi meron na kami na penalize po.
Actually, assumption nga natin, fourth offense na siya. Assumption natin, fourth offense. DOH should close the facility. Ganun lang.
Sige.
Oo, di ba?
Yes.
Additional question.
Sinabi mo, sige ha.
I have additional question. Your actions will be covered by court order. Closure will be covered by court order.
silent, sir. Ang board, sir, ang forward namin sa board.
Hindi biro-biro magpasara ng facility yan. Without the court order, wala kayong you have no leg to stand up. Kung sabihin nyo na nasa rules ng DOH dyan, kasi sa atin court, we are governed by court of law. Ano ba yung authority nyo? Authority nyo itong regulations nyo? Yun ang tanong ko first, balik sa first na tanong. Kung in-ignore lang kayo.
Sir, kasi yung...
before you do that, before you answer Joe, let me acknowledge si Miss Ines na no box. Tama-tama, puro pagpapasarado pinag-uusapan namin, Ines. So... Sige, Joe.
Kasi ang nag-decide naman ng case kasi ay halimbawa, the Bureau there. So, kung we exercise this quasi-judicial power and we have this power to issue a CDO, cease and desist order. Pero it's a different matter naman kung court yung nag-decide kung na-lodge doon po, kasi sila ang may jurisdiction po, alam mo, regional trial court, sila naman doon ang mag-issue ng closure order. Usually kasi ang ano nila criminal offense naman ang kanila, civil case din eh. At saka ibang cases pa po. Pero administrative case, sa atin po ay license accreditation kasi ang pinag-uusapan ng dito po. When it comes to the license of the personnel naman, halimbawa, as a physician or psychologist or the worker, whatever, dentist, sa PRC na po yun. Sila po may jurisdiction kasi the general rule who issues the license has the power or the authority to revoke it. Thank you.
At least masusubukan natin to, sir.
Kasi, siya na pala yan. I have experience, I was a previous law enforcer. First thing, I will ask you kung request niyo ako. Alam ko mayroong incident dito sa Pinilla na naghahanap ng court order. Yung isang kwan dito sa city na gustong ipakarate. There is one incident there. Now, hindi ko lang sigurado ang detalye, pero ganito din. Pag dinala mo sa akin yung order yung ipasara yan, the first thing I will ask is, do you have a court order? Kasi baka madimanda yung law enforcer. Lagi natin, ano ito, yung facility. Pupunta ko doon, pili ako, may order naman, mapasara ko ba yun? Hindi ka kita i-demanda. Kasi dapat covered may law tayo niyan. Ngayon, kung may effect ng law yung order nyo, tulad ng natin, mga basis, tulad ng natin na board regulations, may effect ng law yan eh, board regulations natin eh, na pwede kang pakulong o whatever. Pero kung walang effect ng law yan, ang unang tanongin ng law enforcer na ni-request nyo na implement, mayroong court order ba yan?
Ay, ganito na lang ang gagawin natin, Jo, para din ko, naawa na ako ni Jojo, pang makulong to eh. Ate, so tama, you will forward the recommendation to the Dangerous Drugs Board. No? Under the law, 9165, the board is authorized. Di ba? So initiate, no, and order the closure. So we will issue a board resolution, no, ordering both either the Department of Health together with PDEA siguro, no, to para yun ang magiging basis nyo, yung board resolution, no, which is authorized under 9165. Ayun. Sige, Dave.
So, sir, sa section 76, pwede rin naman, sir, ang CHD, tsaka FH. HFSRB. Ayun, pwede naman under section 76.
Sa covered siya.
Yes, sir. Complementing naman, sir.
Ako, mahirap kasi.
Baka makulong si Jojo eh. Ayaw nating mangyari yan, siyempre eh. Okay, so far malinaw na ba tayo dito? Ayusin lang natin yung structuring nito para hindi nakakalito. Sige, kids, meron pa ba sa baba?
Appeal na lang po.
Appeal. Sige, let's proceed with appeal. Kasi may isa pa tayong topic eh.
Appeal.
Bababa, Mark. Ayan.
Any sector or any of its personnel aggrieved by the decision of the HFSRB or CHD may, within 15 days after receipt thereof, file a notice of appeal with the Office of the Secretary of Health and serve a copy of thereof to HFSRB or CHD. Thereupon, the HFSRB or CHD shall promptly certify and file a copy of the decision, including the transcript of the hearings on which the decision is placed with the Office of the Secretary for review. The decision of the Office of the Secretary shall be final and executory. And then the next sections would be for separability, repealing clause, and effectivity clause.
Yung closure order na forwarded sa DDB, hindi pwedeng yung pila sa DDB. Kasi puro ng DOH lang ang appeal. Kaya kami magpakulong
na lang, Jo. Siguro yung yung mga nagre-require ng resolution from the DDP, once the appeal has been heard sa DOH level, at least inform the DDP kung anong decision ng DOH dito. Para lang at least inform ng DDP. Although kayo naman talaga yung SOP pagdating, oversight pagdating sa treatment area. Pero at the very least, inform lang yung board para may records din kami rito. No? Lalo na, kasi baka mamaya maging legal issue yan para prepare din yung board. Okay, any other comments as far as this board regulation is concerned? Everybody happy na ba? Lana? So we will end the discussion as far as this board regulation is concerned. We will input all your suggestions, no? And we took note of your concerns, and we will finalize itong document na to. No? And hopefully we can have this yung final approval nito come January 30 sa mother board. Wala pang critical pero mga minor issues na naman. Yung mga space requirements, attach sa annex. Yung pa rin ba? I-attach pa rin natin sa annex.
Sa MOP ito.
Sa MOP. Okay, yung pa rin ay attach natin yun. Same pa rin. Okay, let's proceed with the next. Sige please. Sige, let's take a break, 5-minute break, and let's resume after 5 minutes. discuss? Yung sa physician, o sige. Ay, sa rehab personnel. Tapusin na natin in 4 p.m. Pagsa tayo, 4 o'clock. May clear lang ito. May clear lang ito isa. Opo.
Okay.
Okay, Kicks. Thank you.
So again, this is the second board regulation entitled Implementing Rules and Regulations Governing the Accreditation of Drug Rehabilitation Practitioners. So, Section 1, Scope, these implementing rules and regulations shall apply to all drug rehabilitation practitioners in the Philippines. So, ano ba? Disclaim. Nasa definition na lang tayo, yung drug rehabilitation practitioners. Okay. Authority, this implementing rules and regulations is issued to implement the provisions of Republic Act 9165 and other national issuances. Section 3, regulatory agency, the Department of Health shall exercise the regulatory function through the Health Facilities and Services Regulatory Bureau. HFSRB shall exercise the accreditation of all drug rehabilitation practitioners in coordination with the Dangerous Drugs Abuse Prevention and Treatment Program of the DOH. In addition, DDAP shall exercise the conduct of the following. Number 1 is the formulation and updating of the standard training course. Number 2, training on the standard courses on the assessment and management of drug dependence. And number 3, screening of applicants who will undergo the training. Okay po. So definition of terms, accreditation. It is a formal authorization issued by DOH to an individual who met the accreditation requirements as prescribed under these implementing rules and regulations. Bureau Director again refers to the Director of the HFSRB. CHD is the Center for Health Development. DDP refers to the Dangerous Drugs Board. DDAP, again this is the Dangerous Drugs Abuse Prevention and Treatment Program. DOH is the Department of Health. Drug dependency examination is included. This is a procedure conducted by a DOH accredited physician to evaluate the extent of a person and to determine whether he or she is a drug dependent or not, which includes history taking, intake interview, determination of the criteria for drug dependency, mental and physical status, and the detection of dangerous drugs in body specimens through laboratory procedures.
Mr. Chair, may I make some recommendations regarding the definition, if it's possible. First one is, instead of the word procedure, may we use the word medical examination conducted by a DOH accredited physician and so on and so forth, which includes history taking, intake interview, determination of criteria for drug dependence, mental and physical status, medical complications, comorbid conditions, and the detection of dangerous drugs in body specimens through laboratory procedures.
Noted. Okay.
Next is a drug rehabilitation practitioner. This is a person who works for the treatment and rehabilitation, aftercare, and follow-up of people who use drugs. He or she may be a physician, other professionals, or former drug dependent who provides behavioral interventions to drug dependents.
Okay.
So for the purpose of the word regulation po, drug rehabilitation part is a general term. Drug dependent, and the person suffering from the drug dependence syndrome. Drug dependence, we will also look into the definition based on the SM4 as part of the yes. HFSRB, Health Facility Regulatory Bureau, Provisional Accreditation.
Mark, last Mark. Rich, any comments?
Yung sa definition din,
Okay.
yung sa practitioners, can we start using the word either not former but recovery? I think internationally, recovery is already, nobody's using former already. Kasi yung former, it could be a former drug user that is using again, or still using, di ba? Or so recovery.
Okay. Okay.
This is also.
We also have defined provisional accreditation. This refers to the temporary authorization issued by the CHD to a physician to conduct screening and assessment of a drug dependent. Rehabilitation. So this is the same definition that we have from the previous court regulation. Sige, sir.
Please check this.
Can we support amendable to delete the adjective dynamic?
We just say, sir, can we just delete the adjective dynamic and just define it as the process of reintegration after care and so on and so forth.
Sige. BOH. Bakit ba may dynamic? Pwede naman process. Pwede naman, di ba?
As long as in the definition.
Yeah, it's always good. Sige, sige.
It's defined in the 916.
Oo.
As a dynamic.
That's the law.
Kasi process is already dynamic. It doesn't say in its definition.
Hi, I have a question with regards to the drug rehabilitation practitioner.
Teka, Ines, yun muna dynamic na susunod natin. Ano bang, okay lang, DWH? Saan nyo mo nakuha yung dynamic?
RA 916.
As defined under the law, 9165, nakalagay yun, dynamic. Yung pala attorney, kaya pala may dynamic. Sige, assist. Sige, Ines, your concern.
No, it was just a question, maybe curiosity. Because it says that he or she may be a physician, other professionals, or former drug dependent, or in recovery. Kasi as a physician, it's a profession. So, why the distinction? Why can it not be? Can it be, for example, just anyone who's trained to provide behavioral interventions or using drugs? Why make a distinction? I mean, important thing.
Ba't nga ba natin ilagay yan? Specifically because of Section 39 na, of the law. Meron kasi sa Section 39 of the law, yung accreditation of physician. Very specific.
I'm referring to the drug dependent or
Actually, in line with that, I brought this up before. How come dun sa IRR, why nakacategorize ang former drug dependent? So, aren't we professionals? So, I actually, glad that because I brought that up before.
Well, actually, may point yun, Ba't nga ba natin in-specify dito yung... So, maybe we just specified itong recovering drug dependent. Simply, nadala dati, and we also don't want to preclude them. Ibig sabihin, baka meron kasing mga facility na just because recovering drug dependent sila, they will not be allowed.
No, yeah. But there's also one way of looking at this. That means that everybody, you do training, you get accredited, you're a professional. So you can also look at it that way. If I'm a facility, if I have well, so-called alumni who wants, well, you guys have to undergo accreditation training because we're not hiring former recovering drug dependents as counselors.
Sige, pwede natin
I think that will set. No, nakakalibago lang. I think because we're not used to calling them like this. So I think it's about time that we start labeling them also as professionals.
Sige.
So yung parang ang sa akin kasi automatic, a former drug dependent na walang training, hindi pwede. Hindi pwede talaga.
So training ito, Rich, hindi experience?
No, training.
Training.
No, yung experience, ang laking gray area na yan.
Sige.
Any Dick and Harry can
Sige, DOH, okay ba sa inyo?
Kasi parang we would be...
Broaden lang natin. Kasi masyadong ina-identify natin yung former. Di ba? Bakit? What's so special about you?
Like me, I'm a recovering drug addict. So, I don't know if you're gonna call me a recovering drug addict. No counselor.
How would you like to be rewarded?
I wanna be called as a professional.
Ayun yung sinabi ni Ace kanina. Sige. Anyway, no question, naka-record naman. Ipapasok na lang natin. Sige, Ace.
Improve na lang sa... Next question. After rehabilitation po, we now go to section 5.
Ayan.
Accreditation of drug rehabilitation practitioners. So, for the accreditation of physicians, we have letter A, full accreditation of physicians. The prescribed requirements for the accreditation of physician who will conduct the drug dependency examination and treatment of drug dependence are the following. Number 1, the physician must be registered with the Professional Regulatory Board of Medicine of the Professional Regulation Commission and duly licensed to practice in the country. He or she must have attended the standard training, which is the basic training course for physicians on the assessment and management of drug dependency, facilitated by DOH, DDAP, or CHD. Number 2, for the psychiatrist or addiction medicine specialist, in lieu of the basic training course, he or she may attend the orientation seminar on the laws, procedures, and programs related to drug dependency prevention, assessment, and management facilitated by DOH, DDAP. Next. Okay po. So, letter B is for the provisional accreditation of physicians. The prescribed requirements for the provisional accreditation of physician who will conduct the screening and assessment of drug dependence are the following. Number 1, the physician must be registered with the Professional Regulatory Board of Medicine of PRC and duly licensed to practice in the country, and the applicant must have undergone the training course on the provisional accreditation of physicians on the screening and assessment of drug dependency facilitated by DOH, DDAP, or CHD. To background bakit may provisional and
actually, nagka-problema kasi tayo yung when we captured yung surrenderers ng, sa community base ng local government units, kukunti yung accredited physician. And so we want to fast track yung training natin ng mga LGU physicians. And this is the reason for the provisional accreditation. We want as much as possible lahat ng LGU physicians are trained to provide itong assessment of drug dependence.
This is supposed to be a stopgap measure, no? Kaya lang, hanggang ngayon, dun daw sa Laguna, marami ng train, pero hindi pa sila accredited. So, sabi ko nga, hinihintay pa yata itong lumabas. So, meantime, hindi pa rin siya stopgap. Meron pa rin gap.
Well, after itong public hearing natin, pag okay na to, that's it. Papublish na natin ito. So, baka ito na yung nila.
Excuse me po. Doon sa psychiatrist po, sir. Kasi nung last year, piling na-update yung mga mas walang training. And then, sabi na, hintayin na daw po ito. So, ito na po yung sa psychiatrist.
Papasok siya under number 2 ng physicians. Yung mga addiction specialist na. Sige, please.
For the accreditation of other drug rehabilitation practitioners, the prescribed requirements for the accreditation of other drug rehabilitation practitioners who will conduct the day-to-day operation are the following. The applicant must have been actively involved in the management of drug dependence for at least 3 years prior to the filing of application for accreditation, and the applicant must have undergone the basic training course on rehabilitation management of drug dependence facilitated by DOH, DDAP, or CHD. So, dito po papasok yung other personnel natin, other center personnel who are not physicians but involved in the management of drug dependence.
Okay, when we were discussing this, I think then this.
After you, sir.
I would just like to inform everyone, when we were discussing this, ang haba nung debate namin inabit dun sa 3 years. Prior to the filing. Kasi ito yung schools of thought, merong 2 years lang. In the US, 2 years lang, no? Required, no? Pero tayo, mas may tayo 3 years.
Yes, sir. Kasi experiences din, nagkakahit tayo sa mga rehab centers natin ng mga fresh graduates. Hindi pa natin sila mai-accredit kasi hihintay pa tayo ng 3 years. Baka naman pwede na natin i-bypass.
Oo, ang layo.
It's up to you. That's up to you. That's the reason why we're discussing this.
Mr. Chairman,
If you feel yung 3 years is too long,
it's too long.
yeah, yun nga sabi ko noon eh. Kasi sa Amerika, 2 years lang eh. Bakit tayo 3 years eh? Masyadong pinapera.
It's too long.
Yeah.
So what would be the suggestion?
My suggestion is we can give them a provisional na accreditation just like the doctors na after a certain period of time. Yeah.
So ano yung period natin dito, Ben?
So, 1 year.
1 year? O sige, then that's no. Yun nga yung concern ko noon.
Training muna.
Yun yung concern ko noon, 3 years is too long. Kaya yung minamadali nga natin eh, na kasi nga kulang yung nasa ground natin ng physician.
Yes,
Sir, question. When we say actively involved in the management, what exactly do we mean by actively involved?
DOH. Kasi if you were to ask me, clinician yan, actively involved.
Oh, actively involved. It's parang very, ano siya eh, big eh.
Ano sa inyo, Joe? Ano ba eh? Ibig niyo sabihin yan?
Admin, pwedeng admin ba yan?
Kasi pag actively involved, clinician yan. Is dealing directly with the patient, no?
Actually,
Ano, Joe?
kasi ito talaga lifted na dito sa dating board regulation from DDB pa.
Yeah.
Board DDB, actively involved.
1 year na.
So I guess no, about time we really define that.
But to me, I agree with you na Mr. Chair na clinician, no? Nagkakatanggap ng examination. For example, or ma-manage them.
But Doc, this is other drug rehabilitation. So this is not just physicians.
At other
You're talking about non-physicians here.
Okay.
So what exactly do we mean by actively involved in the management?
Kung if by documentary requirements, dun sa next portion which is the procedural guidelines, active involvement can be parang exhibited by a certificate of employment.
So involved in rehab work,
Yes.
regardless mo ang involvement niya.
Whether it is security
Oo. Kasi kung
or
involved
admin.
Or kasi parang diba in a sense, parang the rehab practitioner will know if he has to apply for accreditation, if he knows that he's really, parang it would benefit him at kailangan niya. Parang kung ako naman, di naman talaga ako involved, though I work in a rehab center, pero admin ako, pero why would I apply for accreditation if hindi ko naman siya kailangan? Diba? Parang wala. Or yun ang yung point ko.
So parang sinasabi mo rin is technical.
Yes.
Oo.
Dapat, no? Assume yan.
So when we say technically involved in the management of drug dependence siguro.
Yes. Ika-qualify na lang.
And then 1 year na lang fix ha?
1 year.
Oo.
Technically involved, clinically involved, or
Parang gano'n. Ano tayo yung term? Na... Kasi kung tama, kung admin o security ka, bakit ka mong pag-apply? Oo. Involved in the management. Or you say management?
Pwede ako naman kasi using the term management, sir.
Ganun ba? Oo.
Hindi ko alam.
Oo.
Or in the state, they're not using the term
Management.
Although specified. Tayo, management, we're using the word management in a very, it could be the maintenance, it could be very broad.
What if clinical management pa rin?
Yun, very specific. Yun.
That means you deal with the patient. Di ba?
Service
Management. Sige, anyway, we look for a term now.
Or program management, meaning the program, anything about the program. Ethical, counseling, occupational therapy, anything about that. But when it comes to admin, parang tawag admin, I don't need to go through an accreditation kung accountant ako dun sa ano.
Yes. So, noted sir. Yes.
Na-notice ko lang kasi dito sa mga accreditation na to, how can we compare the local government unit to implement those things? Paano sila, compare natin sila na sumunod dito? Para kasi ang susunod lang dito yung mga private individuals na kumikita dito sa rehabilitation. How about yung mga local government na wala naman silang kikitain dito at part ng trabaho nila to? Paano natin sila mako-compare na sumunod dito? Hindi naman to business nila.
Mr. Chair, if I may answer yung Sir Louie. Sir Louie, actually, we sent from the DOH Central Office, the DITAC, sends out sa mga regional offices namin sa CHPs for training ng mga individuals na to. Maraming ways po. First one is they will compel their local government units to send their doctors for training, then eventually for accreditation. Another one is directly kami ang nagpo-perform ng mga training sessions nila para sila po ma-accredit. So we make it a point to spread the information and then i-decentralize namin sa CHPs and then sila na ngayon ang perform ng training ng mga doctors. And we have been, it's in practice right now, sir.
But namomonitor din kasi namin na hindi lahat ng mga municipal and city doctors ay nag-undergo ng training. May nag-comment pa, hindi ko nababanggitin. Ayaw nila kasi dagdag lang ng trabaho, hindi naman dadagdag ang kita nila. Yan ang comments nila. So, yan ang nakikita, namomonitor ng PDEA.
Correct din, sir. Pero hindi naman lahat. I'll speak for NCR kasi dito experiences ko. Sa NCR, sir, marami tayong na-train dito sa NCR. Oo. Diba? Sa provincial, sa ibang mga regions natin, medyo konti. Kasi there are issues with some doctors, but not all. Some doctors are willing to train and some doctors are very happy that they train sa addictions. The same way with other programs ng DOH. Tuwing nagpapaba tayo ng programs na not drug-related, may mga resistance talaga yan. Pero once naman na na-train na sila, na-motivate na natin sila, ginagamit na nila, sir.
Again, dyan papasok yung DILG Memorandum Circular, no? Under the Memorandum Circular, they are supposed to perform functions for community-based programs. Kung wala silang training at hindi sila makapag-assess, babagsak sila sa evaluation ng DILG. Ayun yung seal of good governance, no? Kasi isa sa mga requirements yan for them to provide community-based services. And one of the, I think, most critical dyan is yung assessment part. No? So, di ba, let's look into it, Louie, no? Nakita rin naman ng DILG yung issue dyan. In fact, inuuna lang natin yung incentive phase. Binigyan natin ng awards last December, yung mga best performing. Pero ang next na dyan, titignan na natin yung mga hindi nagko-comply. No? And then, bibigyan na natin sila ng kaupalang parusa din kung sakali. No?
Question lang as we've gone back then, can you rin sa activity or in the number of years? I mean, where does the quality of that involvement come in? Because then it comes as a number of years. So 1 year we facility one.
Hirap na inis, ha?
Sorry?
Oo. Kasi ang assumption ko, yung 1 year na yun, quality nun. Pero correct.
Yeah. In the sa states, what they do is for you to apply pa lang for training pa lang. You need to have a supervised, you need to present first clinical hours, 3,000 clinical hours that is signed. So you produce a document that it's called the supervised clinical hours. So in that way, whether you are just a counselor or a assessor lang, may So these are the things that maybe we can start considering.
O kasi right now, we're trying.
Ano yan? Yung, anong 2 hours? Anong 1 year yun? Anong tama?
Right now, ang difficulty natin, we're trying to balance making itong regulation natin more accessible, easy to comply, versus yung observation ni Louis. No? Kasi kung masyado tayong maraming i-require, no? Yun na nga ang sinasabi ng physician, additional work sa akin yan, all the more magkakaroon sila ng excuse. Hindi ako qualified, hindi ako magpapa-accredit.
Sir, kung ano kaya natin, ihiwalay natin, iba yung facility base, at iba yung requirement, kasi iba talaga requirement sa facility base, at iba ang requirement sa community base. In fact, mas mababa pwede ang community base.
Thank you na, and then
Actually, we could layer to add to the conclusion. Siguro kung they only meet the minimum requirements for practice is certification, certified rehabilitation worker. Tapos, accredited na pag marami ng trainings, tumataas ng experience. I mean, di ba, parang level up din. Hindi pareho lang kayong bagong pasok. Ikaw ang tanda-tanda mo na, pareho lang kayong accredited. So, meron certified. Just as kagaya ng licensing, meron ng certain level of competence na for you to be accredited. Yun lang po.
Gold accreditation ka pare sakali man. Meron man nun. Ha? Gold or platinum accreditation. Ang ano siguro we can discuss this further. Anyway, you've always been part of the training program in DDAP. Then we can discuss these matters sa DDAP na sa training level para kung ano yung requirements, ano yung para ma-push natin.
Sige. Let's work within yung period na sinuggest kanina na 1 year. Kasi tama si Ines, dapat may quality yung 1 year na yun.
Yeah.
So pwede natin lagyan ng layering yun. No? Within the Department of Health na pag-usapan sa TWG. For the meantime, broad strokes, yung 1 year, i-allow na natin ito kasi may hinihintay nyo ito eh. Hinihintay nyo ito ng mga physician natin sa local government units. No? And then, pag-usapan na lang natin sa TWG, yung quality, sabi ni Ines. Pinahirap ni Ines eh.
Hintay, pare. Hintay. Mga
Kasi I
I
think the details po, kasi parang nitty-gritty din, I think the details would be reflected on another issuance that I guess the Department of Health would be issuing. Kasi this is parang it's a general IRR to which is adopted by the DOH. Doon nalabas yung what are parang the detailed requirements that we need kung para masabi na you can apply for accreditation.
We can also tie this up with the plan of ASEC RJ Echeverry. Sabi ko kanina, meron kasi siyang plano, gagawan talaga ng separate issuance, yung community-based and integration program. So baka doon papasok yung expertise sa community level, na tama ka rin, mas mababa yun compared sa yung mga inpatient programs talaga. So,
plus the problem is really different.
Yeah.
Yes.
The problem is entirely different.
Yeah.
Thus by scope ng IRR po, it apply to
sige, so for now, i-adapt muna natin broad strokes. Now, and let's look into the details once we discuss yung bagong issuance.
Yes.
Sige.
Next is the procedural guidelines for certificate of accreditation. So we have for the full accreditation. So more of ito na yung mga documentary submission and which office in the Department of Health. So number 1, the DDAP shall provide HFSRB with the official list of physicians and other drug rehabilitation practitioners who completed the standard training on assessment and management of drug dependence. The applicant accomplishes the required application form and submits all the documentary requirements to HFSRB or CHD. The applicant pays the corresponding fees to the cashier of the DOH in person or through postal money order. For initial accreditation, the following will be the requirements. Number 1 is the application form filed at the HFSRB or CHD. Certified true copy of appropriate PRC ID if applicable. Certificate of training on the standard training course on the treatment and management of drug dependence issued by DOH, DDAP, or CHD, or recognized training provider by DOH. meaning recognized training provider by HHRDP and TDAC. For psychiatrists, submission of a certificate of completion of residency in psychiatry, and then for addiction medicine specialist, a diploma certificate, and then a certificate of employment.
Yeah.
Sir, then do, sir, if I may, for addiction medicine specialist, a diplomate or fellowship certificate.
A diplomate or fellowship. Okay.
Mataas.
Oh, mga NBI clearance daw, sabi ni Ate Len.
NBI clearance. Pwede na.
Tingin mo.
Regarding the diplomate or fellow sa mga physicians, usually use the word board certified po. Yung mga nag-undergo kasi ng residency but did not pass the specialty board exam, we call them board eligible. Board eligible. Kaya maybe we can use the word here, board certified na.
Okay yun?
Board certified.
Yeah.
So, ang diplomate or fellow, board certified po yan.
Board certified. Ano ko lang din, yung sa psychiatrist kasi certificate of completion of residency lang ang required. I think that's good enough.
Oh, medyo. Okay ba yun? Okay na?
Okay na.
Parang nagkikita
No response eh. Kaya,
Kasi narinig ko kasi sa mga ilang psychiatrist na kausap ko, sila mismo nagsasabi na hindi naman kasama sa amin yung hindi sa curriculum, yung addiction, rehabilitation, like that. Kaya parang ayaw din nila eh. Sila mismo, mga tapos na residency. Kaya ang ano pa rin namin kasi hinahanap lagi namin yung board certificate, specialty board certificate, yung diplomate or fellow siya.
board certified.
Oh, board certified. So we use the word, we have the term board certified.
Sige. Anyway, these are minimum requirements ito . Kung halimbawa yung employer nila, local government would require other requirements, wala nang problema yun eh. No? Sabi si Ate Len, yung NBI, drug testing. No? So bago sila i-hire ng local government, the local government may require them. In fact, may issuance na si Secretary Anyo, di ba, requiring yung workplace drug testing and other requirements. No? So these are just the minimum na pinag-uusapan natin. They may add yung especially sa mga employers nila. No? Sige, please.
Sir, one more panghapon. Kasi di ba naka-indicate sa atin dito psychiatrist at addiction medicine specialist. Kaya lang parang gusto kong i-separate siya. Kasi baka ma-turn off hindi ba mga doctors.
Sige, ano bang suggestion mo? Wala problema, basta ikaw.
Instead of lumping it as 2.3,
so separate bullet siya.
Opo.
Okay, sige.
I don't know how to place it na, you understand what I mean? 2.4 na ba? Parang and addiction med. Parang hindi siya
Special cases.
Oo.
Welcome, Dr. Clara Poderana of the Department of Health. Please join us. Sige, walang problema. Sige. Ano ba?
Sige.
Okay, Tanya. Sige, continue, please.
So next po is for the renewal of accreditation. One is the letter of endorsement from Regional EDAP Coordinator from the Local Health Officer addressed to the CHD Director, certified true copy of the current PRCID, and certificates of continuing education trainings related to treatment and management of drug dependence provided by DOH or CHD or recognized training provider by the DOH. So those are the requirements for the renewal. So upon accomplishing the required application form, number 3, the HFSRB or CHD evaluates the documents submitted to determine compliance with the accreditation requirements. For the initial accreditation, HFSRB or CHD approves or disapproves the issuance of certificate of accreditation. If approved, the HFSRB or CHD registers the drug rehabilitation practitioner and issues the certificate of accreditation.
Bien.
Mr. Chair, dun sa renewal of accreditation, okay, certificate of continuing education trainings related to treatment management of drug dependence provided by DOH.CHD or recognized trainings provided by the DOH. Sometimes there are some trainings that we may get from abroad, and that maybe we can also accept it.
Actually, may provision tayo dyan for reciprocity mamaya din.
Well, at least may include sa renewal.
So any training provider accepted by the Department of Health, whether from an international body or local service provider, then okay yun. May accredited ka, no? As long as recognized ng Department of Health, why not?
So if disapproved naman po the initial accreditation, the HFSRB or
mark sa baba, disapproved.
Sends the findings and recommendations to the applicant for compliance. Failure to comply within 15 days shall be a ground for denial of application. And then for the renewal of accreditation, application shall be filed with the CHD within the required period from October 1 to December 15 of the current year. An accreditation that is not renewed within the required period shall bear a penalty of 5% of the payment fee. If approved, the CHD registers the drug rehabilitation practitioner and issues a new certificate of accreditation. And if disapproved, again, the CHD sends the findings and recommendations to the applicant for compliance. Failure to comply within 15 days shall be a ground for suspension of accreditation.
That would discourage other workers na to renew. Mabawalanta ng workers na let us not be very strict on yung penalty. Ikaw wala rin pera agad na natin yung priority yung compliance sa accreditation.
So, for now, ang priority natin to encourage more. For now, siguro later on, saka natin pag-isipan yan. Kasi gusto niya, ang point niya last time, di ba? Gusto natin encourage lahat ng local government physicians to get accreditation. Then later on siguro,
Pwede tayo.
but for now, gusto natin paramihin ko. Konti nga eh. Sige.
So for the provisional accreditation naman po, these are the procedural guidelines. The applicant shall submit all the documentary requirements to CHD. The CHD evaluates the documents submitted to determine compliance with the accreditation requirements. So they will be submitting a certified true copy of their PRC ID and certificate of training on the standard training course on screening and assessment of drug dependence. If found to be compliant, the CHD registers the physician and issues the provisional certificate of accreditation. The CHD shall regularly submit to the DHD the list of physicians given the provisional accreditation. So, very minimal lang yung require natin. ID lang sa certificate. So, payment of fees.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, yun lang yung tungkol dun sa 15 days to comply. Oo. Are we trying to suggest that we increase the duration for the compliance? Yeah. And may we know, sir, what is your suggestion for that?
Habakan natin ng konti. Even yung penalties, tanggalin muna natin, no? Kasi we're trying to encourage na sana yung LGUs, no? For now lang naman. And then yung 15 days, kung gusto nyo, gawin yung 2 months. Ano lang, for now, kasi first time tayo mag-issue ng board regulation on rehab workers, eh. Di ba? But anyway, it's not cast in stone. After a few months, gamit natin if we found so many issues, di ba?
I agree with that, sir. Mas maganda po na medyo maging lax tayo na muna ngayon to encourage them to become accredited.
Again, for chronological purposes, sana mas mauna yung provisional bago full. Kasi may transition, di ba? Kasi what will make them fully accredited, di ba? Meron din natin na yun.
Structuring lang. Nahin natin yung provision.
So fees. Number 1, the applicant pays the amount of 2,000 pesos for the accreditation of physician and 1,000 pesos for the accreditation of other drug rehabilitation practitioners to the cashier of the DOH. HFSRB is authorized to adjust the schedule of fees from time to time, and no fees shall be collected for the provisional accreditation of physicians. Next po. Content of the certificate of accreditation. For full accreditation of physicians and other drug rehabilitation practitioners, the certificate of accreditation shall state on its face the name of the drug rehabilitation worker or the name of the drug rehabilitation practitioner, the accreditation number, and the period for which it is valid. It shall be signed by the HFSRB director or the CHD director. For the provisional accreditation of physicians, the certificate of provisional accreditation shall follow a standard template and shall be signed by the CHD director. So later, pwede natin upakita yung itsura ng allowable service fees for private physicians. The DOH shall regulate the service fee for drug dependency examinations. Guidelines for this provision shall be issued by DOH.
I raised this issue before kasi, no? With regards to professional fees ng mga doctors. I don't know of any other service na nire-regulate natin sa government eh. Tapos iba-iba din kasi iyan eh. Mayroong kunwari ako taga-Makati-Med ako. Tapos si Reggie ay taga-probinsya lang. Mas mahal ang overhead ko. Mas malaki ang i-charge ko. Please kay Reggie.
Ganon? Taga-probinsya lang kasi, gano'n?
Oo, probinsyano lang yan. Ang probinsyano.
Hindi, actually, I want to ask the same question eh. Bakit natin i-regulate yun? Anong rationality dyan? Ano bang naisip ng BHFS? Kasi yung ibang fees, hindi naman natin i-regulate eh. Ang worry ko dyan, tama, there are standards. Merong mga facilities na talagang high-end. No? Pag pumunta ka sa akin, aircon, may juice ka pa. No? Eh, syempre, sisingil naman yan. On the other hand, kung government facility naman, di ba, baka minimum lang ang singil niyan. So, anong rationale? Bakit natin i-regulate yun? I just want to understand.
Sir Kiko, siguro magkaroon.
Ang nag-comment lang ano, even RA 3832 or the Medical Act of 1959,
okay,
as well as the nakatas doon yung medical ethics, so hindi po nire-regulate, hindi naka-stipulate doon yung fees po. Wala po. Even ngayon, from time to time, may mga queries or may mga complaints na exorbitant na fees, but we don't figure that is not really our money po.
Kasi si Reggie, kung maningil ito, 10,000 eh.
Oo.
Eh, wala tayong magawa. Kasi high-end eh. High-end, no? So,
Sir, palagay ko ito hindi ayan dito, hindi ayan. Sir, palagay ko ito yung nangyari nun sa Davao. Remember? Yung tungkol sa JJWC. When a lot of people raised the issue dahil iba-iba daw po ang payments na hinihingi sa kanilang members, sir, na pwede ba gawan nyo naman ng ceiling price yung DDE? Kasi bakit doon sa region ganito lang, tapos sa amin times 400%, yung mga ganon. I think ito po yung nag-ano nun, na kung pwede ba natin. I think I raised this issue as a question. Kasi it was raised during that time. So I raised this and I think this was the reason why they placed that.
well, I remember the issue was due to the fact that at the time, yung government physicians natin kulang eh. No? And that's the reason why we're trying to capacitate sana yung local government so that libre, no? Hindi mag-take advantage yung mga private. So I don't know, gray area sa akin to. Do you want to really place this here?
I would recommend na tanggalin na lang natin, sir.
For now. Let's look into solving muna yung problem, Clara. I-train muna natin yung mga LGU physicians natin who can provide the services for free. Di ba? Kasi at the time, talagang naniningil yung private eh. Pero kung meron na silang competition, libre pa. So, paano na? Di ba? Oo. Oh, yung mga may clinic, private practitioners na.
Lyrics yata nila yung time na yun was PRC, DOH accredited.
PRC?
Oo, para yun yata.
Kayo yun, DOH. Bakit kayo naniningil? As much as possible kung government physician. That's part of the, part of their service unit, part of their job unit. Yes, report siya. Hindi, off the record. Hindi, for now, let's strike muna ito. Isa na lang natin.
Mr. Chair, sa ODDD, araw-araw kami dyan nagkakagat ng DDE for free. Pati fee for that test, meron bayad.
Oo, bikutan yata charges 500.
Okay naman yung 500.
Nakabili nga ng shampoo.
Oo, di ba?
Nakabili nga sila ng pang DCE, wala sila.
Correct.
Pag-aralan din natin ito. Pero for now, you cannot regulate kasi yung charging of fees even sa private practitioners. Medyo baka magkaroon tayo ng legal issue dyan. Libre sila
So, strike out na po muna.
Question lang po, side question lang.
Yung private practitioner who has a private clinic can conduct drug tests inside the clinic. As part of the drug test. Meron akong alam na may mga test kits, may test kits sila. Tapos nagpo-conduct. Part of DDD.
We part.
Sige.
Hindi, unofficial yun. Kasi sometimes you really just need to monitor kung gumagano yung pasyente. Kasi di ba tinitignan kung gumamit ito recently or tinitignan kung siya nawawala. Pero hindi siya official. No, of course. You're using a kit you're examining a patient. Kasi ginagawa ni Coach yun eh. Hindi, joke lang. Yeah, kasi di ba, when you're using some materials, of course you have to charge. But it's not official.
For the purpose of, kunwari, may required na drug testing, it will not suffice.
No.
Because you have to be accredited as we have
laboratory.
Laboratory. Yes.
Okay.
Sige, so for now, itong charging service fees, silent muna tayo dyan.
So, tatagalin na natin muna siya. Strike out.
Mahaba pa ba yan?
Ilan no?
Sa page na lang kasi 4 o'clock na. Sabi ko 4 o'clock.
Monitoring. DOH shall require all DOH accredited physicians, full and provisional, to submit monthly statistical reports to the Dangerous Drugs Board Secretariat. The report shall include but is not limited to the classification of risk for drug dependency and classification of severity for drug dependency. And then validity, certificate of accreditation shall be valid for a period of 5 years, while provisional accreditation shall be valid for a period of 2 years. The provisional accreditation is non-renewable, and the physician must comply with a full accreditation before the validity of the provisional accreditation expires.
Mr. Chair? Monitoring monthly, kaya ng mga doktor natin ito.
Incidentally, yung submission, we don't accept physical submission anymore. We're online na.
Online.
Hindi ko na alam, we could come up with a separate system exclusive for doctors. Kasi iba naman yung mga hinahandle niyo. Siguro, we could also ask the degree or the severity of the problem, no? Kung ilan na ba ang psychotic, ilan na ba yung ganyan, ilan na ba yung may emergency procedure. Kasi kailangan natin yun. Yung mga may suicidal, yung overdose, di ba? We can come up with
Mark, I don't know if you can answer this question. Ito ba yung tinitraining nyo sa local government units? Yung part ba ito na tracking? Mark, tawagin mo nga kung sino. Pwede, para matanong natin. Kasi, we're training local government units. We're getting data from the local government units. Hindi ko lang alam kung ano yung specific information na sinasabit sa amin through price.
And also, di ba yung reklamo ng mga doktor at nagtrabaho na naman?
Kaya baka naman ang assumption, yung doktor, after na ibigay sa community-based program, yung local government units na yung nagsasabit.
Pero ito nga sa monitoring, yung doktor ang magsasabit.
Sige, alamin natin muna. Abangan natin yung IT person namin. Clara, please.
Mr. Chair, palagay ko itong pinagagalingan po itong monitoring is for yung ICAD and pads natin na pangangailangan, that we need to know the severity of those who were examined. And so yung DDE will have that diagnosis and then refer to where. So para meron tayong I think that's because of that.
Oh, pero yung sistema, would we get yung data directly from the physicians? Kasi the physicians can submit sa Anti-Drug Abuse Council. The council is the one being trained, no, to utilize your trials. Pwedeng nandun na lang. Oh, kasi ang bigat niya kung directly nagre-report sila. Oh. Anyway, alamin natin pagdating ng IT person case.
Baka pwedeng i-relate na lang siya sa existing.
Kasi sa ADAC na lang, parang isa lang din yung hinihinga natin ng data. Baka mamaya, dami-dami nagsasabit ng data, tapos pag kinulit natin, hindi nagtutugma. No? Iba yung sinabit ng anti-drug abuse, iba yung sinabit ng physician. Better, yung local government na lang yung charge, para yun lang ay nahawakan nating datos. No? Ang assumption natin, sinabit ng physician doon sa local government.
Aside from that, there may be some physicians that would like to submit directly online para dalawa yung pathways. You have two options.
Online din kasi yung ADAC Kaya nga might as well, anyway, physician would be under the Anti-Drug Abuse Council. Dapat yung ginagawa nila, alam ng ADAC So they need to first report sa ADAC.
Okay.
Di ba? And then yung ADAC, ipapato sa atin.
Yung TRCs.
That's another, iba yun. Department of Health yun And then, nakatayap naman kayo sa TRICE system.
Hindi. Yung additions namin, ang ina-upload namin sa TRICE. Yung DDE namin, hindi namin dinadala sa TRICE. I'm not sure.
Yun ang ayusin natin. Well, kasi ang assumption ko nga, TRICE pumapasok, even yung private Pero kung hindi kasama yung drug dependency, yung at least yung severity, then pag-aaralan natin kung paano natin may pasok yun. Kasi wala tayong data on severity. Hindi nga natin, ang ginagamit natin yung UNODC data, di ba? Yung 1%, 10%, and then 90%.
I think we need a dedicated, kasi kung kunwari, psychotic, hindi magre-reflex sa rehab yan because hindi naman sila magre-accept ng psychotic. Sa basement yan or sa psychiatric clinic yan pupunta. So, para matrack natin yung client, dapat alam natin saan yung mga possible referrals na based on the severity.
And the DD can answer.
Yes.
Saan yung refer?
So, let's look into the system kung available ba o hindi. Kasi kung hindi, gagawa natin.
Okay, so PRCs, yung nire-receive kanina, private practitioners, paano ruta nila?
The same way. Required sila. To submit sa bagong system.
Or diretso DDB?
Yung kasing system ng DDB, isa lang may tie-up na kami with the Department of Health. Isang online system lang yung submission on. So whatever you submit sa Department of Health is also submitted to DDB. Dalawa yung nakikita both ng DOH at DDB. Cory, okay. So nandito na si Cory para klaruhin lang natin. Yung bang severity sa drug dependency evaluation, mild, moderate, severe, na-report ba sa traction?
Sir, sa
IDIM risk, okay. Yung IDIM risk, training ba natin ng local government? Train sila. So ang proseso natin, yung physician i-assess, ipapasa nila ngayon sa Anti-Drug Abuse Council yung findings nila. Yung ADAC na yun ang magpapasok sa system. Tama ba? Okay, that's the system. So ang gap ngayon natin, private practitioners. Paano natin nakaka-capture yung severity sa private? Wala,
sa ngayon kasi sa yung deliveries, hindi na-identify kung private physician here or
Okay. Well, sige, we will specify na dapat yung private practitioners, di ba, should submit reports through IDIM risk. Basically, yun ang gap natin ngayon. Sa government, wala pa tayong issue Malinaw yung sistema ADAC ang nagsasubmit sa atin. Trained na natin sila, naglibot na kayo, di ba? So ang problema ngayon natin, private practitioners. PRCs, nagsasubmit naman kayo, di ba? Severity wala. So TRCs wala. Yun ang gap natin. Gagawa natin yun.
Yung tries kasi ang nag-upload ng positions with pero wala po yung severity.
So yun ang gaps natin. I-address natin yan separately. The system issue siya. Boss, thank you.
Sige po. Balik lang po ako sa monitor.
Sige.
Clarify lang. So, parang for the meantime po, ang mangyayari is yung statistical reports of the DOH accredited physicians will be submitted to the DP through the Anti-Drug Abuse Council. Parang safe na escape na natin ito, yung channel of submission.
Yung sa local government. Pero yung nga may gap tayo sa private as well as sa TRCs pala.
Pero for...
Anyway, we will address that in the future.
Kasi upon implementation naman ng Portleg, I think majority na mako-cover naman natin is
local decisions. Tama. Yun naman ang intention niya. Even yung provision natin.
Very few percent na siguro private.
So even sa private facilities, metro site, wala yung part na yun.
Yung trans na pamumuno lang po, wala yung sa...
Wala pa yung... Sige, Kicks, at least na-identify natin yung gap.
So, validity again, pag full accreditation is 5 years, pag provisional is for 2 years.
Okay.
Pero after na provisional, parang they have to have the full, wala extension na provisional po. Next is transition period.
Text sa asawa si Martin.
A transition period of 1 year from the approval of this board regulation shall be given to the concerned bureaus or offices of the DOH to facilitate the transfer of accreditation procedures of drug rehabilitation practitioners and the list of active DOH accredited drug rehabilitation practitioners to HFSRP. The latter shall assign individual accreditation number for those active DOH accredited drug rehabilitation practitioners. In effect, HFSRB shall issue certification that such practitioners are active, indicating their individual accreditation number. During the transition period, the Health Human Resource Development Bureau shall develop mechanisms to recognize and accredit trainings conducted by partners and other organizations. Parang I think dyan magpo-fall po yung reciprocity or recognition of other trainings conducted even outside the Philippines.
So if you have service providers, local service providers and even international service providers wants to provide capacity-building activities, they can get accreditation from the Department of Health through HHRDB.
It will be recognized.
Yeah.
Kasi PRC mo may reciprocity.
That's another new provision.
Yeah, about the reciprocity. As much as I believe na we need training because of the situation that we have. And I have nothing against that, na other organizations doing training. But I think I need to define first, ano ba yung difference ng certification and ng accreditation? If we're just talking about certain skills and knowledge, yung training can be done by anyone. But me being part of the technical working group of DOH sa training, see, if you will look at the content of the DOH accreditation training, it's not just about the skills, it's also about the process ng DOH. Having said this, yung bang mga other organizations are familiar with the DOH, I think Dr. Let is beside me. She lectures, she has some topics, it's about DOH, mga DOH, procedures na about dependency management in the rehab. Now, so that's my, parang, how can I ask certain foreign organizations to come and do the accreditation training? Now, kung certification lang, like in NADAC, yung NADAC, only very specific yan, addiction counseling. Yan. Wala problema yan, addiction counseling na yan. today, because of we have a lot of materials, generic na rin yan. Anybody can really do it, can do a training. But when it comes to accreditation, it's like, being accreditation is being able to fulfill a certain skills and standard to a certain system. Hindi to certification lang na, I can do counseling kahit sa Bulacan or private. But it's a system, kaya accreditation eh. So, yun, that's my point. No? Again, I don't know, maybe it's something that we need to consider if we will hand the DOH accreditation to certain organizations.
Sige, if you want, we can reward itong last paragraph na to.
In fact, nothing personal, but it sounds personal. Anyway, some of the organizations, wala nga silang bilib sa DOH training natin eh. Tapos gagawin mo silang partner natin for reciprocity. Wala nga silang bilib eh. Hindi daw, bullshit daw yung training natin eh. Paano yun?
Tama. But let's rephrase itong last paragraph siguro. To develop mechanisms and systems to recognize and certify accredited trainings conducted by partners and other organizations. Now, for this purpose, a technical working group composed of both the private as well as government agencies shall develop the guidelines or what, no? So that mayroong technical working group na gagawa nito. Okay na ba yun?
Sir,
para yung details will be threshed out.
Mr. Chair, I have nothing against some groups doing training. That's fine with me. We need all the, but yung ang issue ko lang, yung pag-accreditation na, it's going inside the system. Am I willing to work on this system? For example, now we're having community-based programs. Ang dami na natin training, ang dami na programs. At the end of the day, my question is, because we do the community-based training also, we talk then. Are we speaking of the same, are we speaking of the same skills and animal? Baka iba-iba tayo dito. Then, paano ko din, ngayon, ako, very curious ako, how effective the trainings could be. But if we have different, how can I have an honest assessment of the trainings that we're doing? We've been doing a lot, so I don't know.
The question is provided by UNODC and Colombo Plan or other international regional organizations. Would that automatically be recognized by DOH?
No, kailangan pa rin ng consent ng Department of Health. Yeah.
Hindi sayang, nangihinayang ako, sayang din yung ginagastos nila. UNODC.
Kasi under the law, it's only the Department of Health ang nakalagay sa atin sa 9165 eh. And so what we're asking for here is for them to submit to the Department of Health. Yun lang ang sinasabi natin dyan. Clara.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I believe that if it's going to be an accreditation thing, hindi tayo dapat maraming nag-a-accredit para maging standard. Kasi kung marami, kahit na foreign pa yan, tama yun, I believe him, no? Hindi alam ng foreign trainers kung ano yung proseso natin, ano yung laws natin, ano yung kultura natin. They may be certified by a very internationally recognized pero accreditation dapat dun sa standard natin na Pilipino. So since mandated ang DOH to do this, bakit kailangan maraming mag-accredit? They may give trainings, they may recognize their trainings, but accreditation, I think it's another thing.
Okay, noted. Well, the purpose then, for putting this provision is also to fast-track yung training sa Department of Health.
Yeah.
Ang common complaint kasi, Clara, ang bagal. Ang bagal, let's face it. Sinasabi nga, pati local government unit, sinasabi, wala kaming training pa, wala pa. Kaya, ito na, binigyan na natin ng provisional para mapabilis. And then, anong masama? If we can get help from other organizations capable of providing the same services, why not? Yun lang naman ang point. Yun lang ang point, no? And then, we are not compromising yung basic requirement under the law. Still, the Department of Health training pa rin. Yung module na dinevelop natin together with UP. That's the basic. We're saying other higher trainings. Bakit hindi? Bakit hindi mo yan? From professional organizations, PICAN, and other why not? Yun lang yan. Ang point lang natin dito, they should submit to the Department of Health. The Department of Health should recognize the module that they are providing. Hindi pwedeng hindi. Kasi sabi ni Rex, kilala ko yan eh. Ayaw pang pangalanan ni Reggie. Yung mga organizations na na nagsasabi na
Hindi na personal.
no, what we're saying, they need to submit. Kasi under the law, under 9165, it's the Department of Health. No? Siya yung agency task to oversee capacity building activities. So they need to submit to the Department of Health. Yun lang yan. Now, for the mechanisms, I agree. There are levels. Iba yung certification, iba yung accreditation. Then pag-usapan natin yan. We can create a group now within the Department of Health together with the private organizations that will lay down yung ano ba yung systems and mechanisms and how to recognize sino ba yung partner service provider natin. Now, pag sinabing PICAM, hindi pwede. Hindi pwede. Pag sinabi ng grupo, no? But again, I see no problem eh. Capacity building ito eh. We can never have enough capacity building activities as much as possible. Lahat ng pwede magturo sa atin, tanggapin natin eh, no? But of course, kailangan dumaan sa Department of Health. Pati yung prioritization. Ano ba yung pa-priority? Again, that's the Department of Health. Yun lang naman yan. So if you want, we can expand this one to include safety nets. No? Under HHRDP, and we can even create a technical working group composed of both private as well as government agencies who will look into ano ba yung mga competencies and levels of curriculum that we need to develop, no? Specifically for addiction medicine, for addiction concerns. Yun na lang. Ano na lang, sabihin na lang natin. Yun. Technical working group can be, kasi baka mamaya pag hindi natin sinulat yun, HHRDP lang ang gagawa niya. Dahil nakasulat yan, HHRDP lang eh. You will not be consulted. Diba? Now, if you're amenable, we can include private organizations, composed of private organizations, government agencies, who will develop and look into your systems of providing certification and even accreditation. Ganun lang. Tapos, yung details, kayo na mag-trash out nun. Okay ba yun?
Ano lang po, kasi whether yung issues po kasi natin for
issue
reciprocity, next naman po mga clauses na separate kasi po yung development ng mechanisms for reciprocity parang indicated lang siya during the transition period. So ito lang yung mangyayari during the transition. Yung kanina iniisip ko, parang sigurado ba tayo na during the 1 year of transition, meron ba talaga mga agencies na magsasabit na, hey guys, can you accredit our programs? Tapos parang ano ba ang numbers natin na mag-i-increase talaga yung physicians natin as accredited? Kasi may magsasabit pa talaga mga agencies or organizations para mapa-accredit ang program nila. So kung ako, my take is I would just have that removed and then it will be part of the
separate
function, parang babalik natin sa page ng regulatory agency, DIDA, parang aside from formulation and updating of standard training course, parang pwede na natin isama doon yung development ng TWG, creation of TWG for the reciprocity purposes.
Agree. Para hindi siya transitory. Sige.
Kasi baka parang pag nakita, I don't know, if nakita siya ng other organizations na yan, baka they would come at us or at you guys. Yung parang baka silang mamali na lang sila bigla na may butas na ang hirap-hirap namin makapasok.
Sige, i-separate mo lang.
Pwedeng tanggalin na natin doon. Tapos, kasama na siya sa formulating and sa first page na lang po, kasi formulation and updating of the standard training course eh. Kasi upon updating the standard training course, parang one of the provisions will be recognizing other training curriculums based on the standards ng DOH.
Okay. So, ang sinasabi mo to recognize, parang read and recognize yung mga provide groups.
At first, recognition lang una siguro kasi accrediting their program based on our standards, considering yung factors na cultural differences, laws, and the Philippines. Parang it's a long way to go.
Kahit recognition lang muna. And then let's define na lang. Ano ba yung ibig natin sabihin?
Kasi para dumami ng dumami. I know that some interested become, for example.
Yeah.
GAP, I suppose.
GAP, become. Ang dami niya.
GAP is interested. Kami is actually. Kasi maraming...
Sino ba si GAP ngayon?
Si Romel Papa.
Romel? Si Romel.
So yun ang
sige, bahala kayo.
Psychopharma, ikaw pa ngayon.
So yun na lang po. Pero the creation of PWG would still be parang pushed through as part of ano.
Sir, sorry ang kulit ko. I think now that we're talking about the training, I think it's about time also that we come up with a so-called record. Well, yung measurement system. You know, we already have a recovery clinic, may community-based program na tayo, meron ng outpatient, may inpatient. You know, until today, we have not had any measurement system to be able to see if these programs work.
Dito ba natin pwedeng pasok yan, fix o ito sa gagawin nating board regulation on programs?
I think sa program siya.
Sa program siya. Kasi we're talking about personal services.
Di ba?
And we the surrender on its way to the indicators for success for which program leader is on its way there.
Programs.
Yeah, anyway. Sige, let's take note ng case, no? Para ipapasok natin dun sa programs. When we talk about yung lahat na ng programs from inpatient, outpatient to community-based.
Yes.
No? Baka dun, kasi itong personnel itong pinag-uusapan natin eh. No? But it's high time we include the provision for measuring yung successes natin.
Yes.
No?
Sir, FYI, INTDAP is on its way to having the indicators for success of each program.
Sige,
maganda po yun na na-erase.
Kanina kasi na-mention ko, Clara, according to ASIC RJ Echeverry, may pondo sila eh. Papatawag sila ng isang workshop specific for the programs. Kasi originally, we intended sana na isang board regulation lahat. Facilities, personnel, programs. Kaya lang masyadong paxing, no? Tagal, no? So, hinati natin yung pangatlo, yun na yung darating yung workshop ni ASIC RJ. Doon natin siya ipasok. Ayun. Doon natin siya ipasok. Together with DSWD yun. Kasi yun, inpatient, outpatient, community-based, and reintegration. So, papasok ang DSWD kay siya. Okay, Ines?
Because we're talking about evaluation, right, and indicators. And I was just wondering the development of these indicators, if the people involved in drugs are going to be consulted.
Of course not. Hindi, syempre.
Not the consultation, because you say stakeholders consultation for the development indicators, it might be very beneficial to actually consult the people involved in drugs. And what would be significant for them also in the
Please note, case, no? We need to invite yung stakeholders natin, especially sa private, no? Kasi nag-i-implement sila eh. Yun sa workshop natin. Anyway, ikaw naman ang kausap ni ASIC RJ, di ba? I-note nyo na lang, no? Sama natin. Kasi talagang dapat hindi sinasama yung mga private na yan. Joke lang. Joke lang.
Meron pa rin si RJ, merong special request from...
Sanay naman ako sa bullying dito. Sir, nabubully sir. Nabubully si Yosef sir.
Okay, anything else? Wala na yata. Cakes, ano? Separability na lang yan. Ano ba?
Yes po. The annexes would only be like yung templates na po ng certificates.
Paala na DOH dyan. Yung certificate lang.
Yung regular.
Lagay nyo ng logo ng San Miguel Beer. Wala kami pakialam.
That's on record,
Joke lang yan. Wala na, pag ganitong oras, tumatakbo na yung utak ko eh. so any other concerns? I think we have tackled so many things, no? This afternoon, very productive afternoon. Well, unless baka may maalala pa kayo, no? Again, we still have time. We will be revising this one. We will be presenting the final board regulation on January 30 sa mother board. And basically, that's it. Approval na yun, and then publication na yan. No? Tama ba? Pa-publish na namin yan, that's it. No? We will no longer hold another public hearing. 15 days. After publication and submission to UP ONA, 15 days. So, it becomes effective. But during that time, before January 30, baka may maalala pa kayo, sabihin nyo lang kami, kung minor lang naman, sige, pwede natin pasok yun. Okay, so, unless may violent objections, Joseph, do you have any concern? What? Parehas kami bully ni Sir eh. Kami ang top bully rito eh. So again, thank you very much for attending, and we hope to see you again sometime soon. And good evening.